Welcome to the Kentucky Governor's Election 2023. Our coverage here on the Josh Calloway podcast. I am not Josh Calloway. I'm Aaron Wells, and I'm not used to having to introduce all this stuff. So I am trying to keep things going pretty smoothly here while he is away, as usual. Then he is involved in a ministry at the church, and he is out serving other people, and that is what he does with his life, and that's what he does all of the time. Then he is he should be joining us hopefully here in just a few minutes, or in probably 2 hours. We have a repeat going on here. Can you figure that out? Yeah, I'm hearing myself like 10 seconds later, just like it was last time on the last live stream. Don't stop it though. We'll just keep it rolling. Very informal. Can you hear it? Yeah, I'm hearing myself. We'll let all the thousands of people kind of gather in here to the. Very informal. We are going to be comparing election results tonight to 4 years ago in 2019 to kind of compare, because the thing that is super important here is voter turnout. If you are watching this, then you've probably been told by like 1 million people to go out and vote. And there was 3 days of early election voting this year, so there's been plenty of opportunity for people to vote. But unfortunately, in these elections, most of the time, then the voter turnout is pretty low. Hopefully, the things that have transpired over the last few days have kind of pushed the voter turnout to the maximum. Polls are closing right now in the eastern side of the state. Do we still have that thing going on or no? What do you have to do? It did this the last time we did a live thing too. Kind of push the voter turnout to the maximum. Polls are closing right now in the eastern side of the state. Do we still have that thing going on? Oh my goodness. Do we have to restart this? Like all 2 people that are watching, then we might have to redo the live stream for you. How about now? I don't hear anything. Oh my goodness. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's even further. The delay's even longer. Whew. Man, we figured it out. I know people are just dying to get into the live stream here, so I'm sure we have a little bit of time to. Okay. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's even further. The delay's even longer. Yeah. Woo. So is the audio running behind my video right now? People are just dying to get into the live stream here, so I'm sure we have a little bit of time to. So is the audio running behind my video right now? If one of the 3 or 4 people that are watching will text me and tell me if we are synced up and good to go so we can get this show on the road. I can't really tell. I can deal with it if it's a delay on my side. Basically, we are, polls are just closing. There's already results coming in Whitley County, or Laurel County. And we are going to compare those with, looks like we got our audio thing fixed. We're going to compare those. We can display these on the screen here. We're going to compare those with 2019 numbers, also with Donald Trump's numbers in 2020 to see how our turnout is going here. The election, the governor's election is obviously the thing that's getting the most national headlines. There are all the down ballot statewide elections are going on as well. So that's, if I can remember these correctly, Attorney General, agricultural commissioner, and the Secretary of State. We can pull all of those up right here on the Secretary of State, Attorney General, Treasurer, Auditor, Agriculture Commissioner, and there is a state House vote, it looks like, which we will be paying very, very, very close attention to. Right now, there are a few votes coming in, and I kind of want to look over the total number of votes that came in 2019. That was about 1,400,000 votes, roughly. And then in 2020, then we had right at 2 million votes come in. The numbers for Daniel Cameron, I think, to have the best chance to win, they need to be in between the 1.4 million and the 2 million. If they're below the 1.4 million, then Andy Beshear has the best chance to win. That doesn't mean he will win. But if they are above that 1.4 million, 1.5 million mark, then Andy Beshear will have the best chance to lose. And that is obviously what we are cheering for here at the Josh Calloway podcast, where Josh Calloway is not here right now. Andy Beshear has run a pretty deceptive campaign, and we could go through all of that. You know, it's going to take a while for election results to come in. We could play some of his campaign ads and all of those things. Very deceptive. I got all these mailers saying that, Daniel Cameron wants to give our medical records out to everybody and take away birth control from people and all this stuff. And the simple fact is that the Democrats call abortion birth control. That's how disrespectful they are to human life, and that is how disrespectful they are to what it means to even be a moral society. They don't care about morality at all. So they can literally call abortion, the murder of children, birth control, and then lie about it in a campaign. It's very frustrating. And that's kind of what we've been dealing with in the state of Kentucky for a while. It's been a while since we've been on the podcast and haven't had a chance to hold all these things to account. But Brother Josh definitely has been working behind the scenes nonstop as a legislator and in other other aspects to fight the agenda that Andy Beshear gets to push all year long with executive orders and with the executive branch and all of those things that he can do. He's not really limited to a legislative session, but the state legislature is. And so there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, even whenever people aren't voting in Frankfurt, even whenever people are, seems like they're in their off season. There's a lot of things that have to be held to account or documented or, county GOP things that have to be visited. I'm not really articulating that very well, but there's a lot that has to be done as a legislator, especially if you are interested in combating the year-round assault that Andy Beshear has launched for the past 3.5 years on this state and its conservative values and its morals. And so there's a lot that's been going on there behind the scenes as well. Daniel Cameron, from my perspective, has run a very clean campaign. He's done a lot of in-person things. He hasn't spent a ton of money just trying to make up any lie that he can about Andy Beshear. They've hit him in some pretty targeted areas with ads in the state, and they've really seemed like they've smartly managed their money. I guess we'll find out tonight, depending on who wins the election, who ran the most politically successful campaign. But Daniel Cameron, as I've known of him for a long time, and a lot of people have known him for a long time. I'm sure there's disagreements between him and other people, even in the legislature. But he has always been a very respectful and a very admirable person, and somebody that really it's easy to talk to, and he does things in a very respectful way. And that's kind of, how things have appeared from the outside with everybody being busy. And I can't tell you how many people have said that the election has snuck up on them this year, and that's kind of how a lot of people feel. We're going to have a few people that come on to talk about different things. The head of the LaRue County GOP is going to call in after their polls close, and he's going to give us some updates there. And then Mr. John Cox that works in Frankfurt and does a lot of things up there with the legislature, then he is going to call in later, probably around 6:30 our time, and give us some updates. He has some crazy stories about stuff that happened in Louisville polls while he was there. You all know how Louisville people are and the radicals that are up there and what they do on election day. And so there's a lot of things that go on there. The first thing we're going to look at, just to give you a rundown of how we're going to break down the different comparisons of the voting from 2019, from this election, and from 2020. So right here on the computer, I'm not sure, can we see this on there right now? Good to go on that. You can see that there's quite a bit of vote comparatively coming in Laurel County. That looks like about 3,000 votes, 3,200 votes, something like that, 31. Daniel Cameron is up really big there. That's really good. So let's look at 2019. We have an election map here and see if I can find Laurel County. You had about 18,000 votes, 18,500, something like that, 18,700. And Bevin won with about 12,667 votes. It's very important to point out and remind everybody that the reason why we have Andy Beshear running against Daniel Cameron in this election is because he is the incumbent governor. And incumbents have quite an advantage most of the time in elections. However, Matt Bevin was the incumbent last time. And so Daniel Cameron really has to outperform Matt Bevin if the election turnout is similar to what it was in 2019. So we're going to be comparing him and seeing how he's performing compared to him. If the voter turnout is really, really low compared to 2019, then we can actually go off of the percentages. So you see here that in Laurel County, Bevin won 71% of the vote, and Beshear won 26% of the vote. You can do a little bit off of those percentages, but the raw numbers are really the thing that are important. And the main reason why that is the case is because Jefferson County always overwhelmingly votes for the Democratic candidate. And so you could have high percentage of Republican votes in small counties with low voter turnout, but then have high voter turnout in a Democrat area, and then all of those good percentages that you have are really nullified. Everybody understands how numbers work and percentages work. So if you see a county, but then it seems like, man, Daniel Cameron's really winning by a lot, or Andy Beshear's winning by a lot in this county, and the voter turnout is low, then that's just turning it into even more of a coin flip throughout the night. The polls have it pretty tight right now. A lot of the polls that came out in the few weeks preceding the election, then they had Andy Beshear up by a lot. Some of them by like 14 or 16 points. That polling in Kentucky is very difficult. And it's very difficult to get the numbers right because a lot of people don't respond. We have things to do. You know, this isn't D.C. or New York City where people just sit around by the phone just waiting for a pollster to call them and ask them who they're voting for in the election that's coming up in 3 weeks. And so getting people to respond is kind of difficult sometimes. But the polling did show that he was behind by about 16 points. Now it says that they're tied. It's worth noting that in the primaries, the poll said that Daniel Cameron was way ahead of Kelly Craft, and then showed that it was tightening close to the election, and it did not tighten at all. Another factor in that primary that is also a factor in this general election is the endorsement of Donald Trump of Daniel Cameron. So Donald Trump endorsed Daniel Cameron, I think, last week, which seemed to be a really good time because it seems like when Kentucky voters were kind of getting interested in the voting process for the governor, we're always a little bit late arriving to the governor's race here in the great state of Kentucky. So anyway, we have here Laurel County. We're looking for about, 17,500, 600 votes would match voter turnout in 2019. Now, by comparison, let's look at the presidential election in 2020, and Laurel County was closer to 28,000, 27,800 votes. So you're looking at 10,000 more votes just in one county that happens in a presidential election. One other thing to remember is that if the voter turnout were what it was in presidential elections, then it really wouldn't be a contest probably. The Republican candidate would win. And so the thing that brings the Democratic candidate into the race is low voter turnout, which is why, if the Republican Party was, excellent at getting out the vote and turning voters out to the polls, then probably wouldn't ever have to worry about another governor's race. But they currently struggle with that. And I think that's true of every party in every state for non-presidential election things. All right, so we're going to go back to our live election results. We have several more counties coming in. We have Whitley County, which is kind of close. One that I am looking at, which we will have I believe he's the head of the GOP in LaRue County. He can correct us if I'm wrong there. But I'm looking at LaRue County because LaRue County switched from Democrat to pretty much full Republican not that long ago. And so it's interesting to see how they're going to vote in this election. Andy Beshear we're told by the media that Andy Beshear is a very, very popular Democratic governor in a very, very Republican state. Now, if you believe the media, then that's probably, your choice, and I probably can't help you there. But that's what we've been told by the Courier-Journal, Lexington Herald. It's also important to remember as well that in the run-up to the 2019 election, then all of the media outlets in Kentucky were running full force against Matt Bevin. I mean, trying to find anything that they could to run against him. And Matt Bevin was kind of a flawed candidate from a conservative perspective sometimes, but he was a very strong governor and did a lot of things that were, that were good for the state and had a lot of new ideas that people were afraid to do. But he was very heavily campaigned against by the established media in Kentucky, and the social media campaigns against him, which would have been then in 2019, were really running full steam. This time, then you have the opposite effect. The incumbent is a Democrat, and you'll see the media has been doing a couple of different things in Kentucky, Courier-Journal, Lexington Herald, all these people. They've been doing several different things in order to aid Andy Beshear. So low voter turnout is the Democrats' friend in Kentucky. And so if there's not a lot of attention around the election, then that benefits the Democrats. So you'll see in the run-up to 2019, there's stories every day about how terrible Matt Bevin is. In the run-up to 2023, in this election, then they'll break a story about Daniel Cameron, but won't really keep it in the news all the time, so it kind of sneaks up on people a little bit. And what they're kind of banking on is that there are a lot of people that'll be like, well, Andy Beshear's been governor. Things haven't been terrible. I didn't die, so might as well vote for him. That's kind of what they're banking on there. And then the second thing that they do is they will make sure that they show certain things about Daniel Cameron that Andy Beshear says about Daniel Cameron. So it's always giving Andy Beshear the appearance in the media that he is the one that you should listen to about Daniel Cameron. And that's tricks that the media have played for years and years and years. So that's what I've seen leading up to this, and the Democrats have been good at that since the post-Civil War. And never forget that. The Democrats were on the wrong side of the Civil War, and they've been on the wrong side ever since. Also came out, as more votes are coming in, just some headlines here, that a lot of Andy Beshear's campaign staff, as far as their getting out the vote staff, were people that were in the, trans community. So I don't know what you call that. What they identify as is not what they are. So I don't even know what you call them. They are men who say that they are women, and there are women who say that they are men. But, they're not who they say they are. And they have been staffing his campaign probably at a discount because of how much they hate the legislation that Brother Josh Calloway, who is the owner of this podcast that I hope that I'm not destroying while he's away, the legislation that he helped to push through back in April and override the governor's veto. So a lot of the people that were protesting against him or verbally, abusing him or whatever on social media, Brother Josh, even, a lot of those people have been working in Andy Beshear's campaign. So if you have any doubts about who's really supporting him, then you already know. Casey County, 2% in. Taylor County, something to watch as well. I believe that's right around, I thought that was around Taylorsville, but actually Nelson County might be Taylorsville. A lot of these areas here are going to be important for Daniel Cameron. These are the areas right here around Frankfort, Lexington. Do we have the computer screen up there? Okay, cool. These areas around Frankfort, Lexington, and even a couple of areas up here. Andy Beshear needs to, is this Cincinnati? Yes. I think it's this area here. Kenton, Campbell, Boone. Yes. Andy Beshear really needs to kind of almost tie Daniel Cameron in these areas. He has to win big in Lexington and in Jefferson County. Warren County could help him out as well. I've heard some rumors from like a political podcast in Kentucky, some people that do like an insider podcast. I don't know if many people listen to it, but it's like a former speaker for the House Republican Party. He was like their spokesperson or media person, something like that. Can't remember his name. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's not going to watch this, but there are a lot of rumors that Eastern Kentucky, that around the Lexington area, if Democrats don't show up to vote, then it is because of a lot of things that have been going on UK's campus. And Democratic governors always in Kentucky depend on people at UK and Western Kentucky, and even in Owensboro some, to kind of get their vote totals up, because all of the liberal students at the colleges, they depend on them to outvote all of the hardworking family-having people that are, actually have jobs in real lives. And I can say that. I went to college for 4 years, no degree, which I'm sure you can tell. But, all the liberal people in there, they can stir them all up to vote on ideological things because they're not having to really participate in the real world, even though they think they are. And so Democratic governors always use that. I don't know if I can find the video, but there was a video of Andy Beshear speaking at UK's Andy Beshear UK campus. They're not going to show it. He was at UK's campus giving a speech, and a bunch of students started yelling like "Free Palestine" or something. Did you see that, Kyle? I did not. Yeah, they were yelling like "Free Palestine" or something. Anyway, there are a lot of this Free Palestine movement, which I know sounds dumb that we would be talking about that with a Kentucky gubernatorial election. But you're talking about thousands of students on college campuses that have been radicalized by their teachers or radicalized by, movements or organizations on campus. There's a lot of those organizations that are funded by countries like Qatar. Even in the state of Kentucky, there are organizations that, hold meetings and indoctrinate students, extracurricular organizations. In the state of Kentucky, at University of Kentucky, at University of Louisville, at Western Kentucky, that way back in the chain there are funded by Qatar, who supports Hamas and terrorism. And I know that sounds crazy, but it can have an effect on this election. If those people do not turn out to vote for Andy Beshear, that can really have a big effect on things. All right, Laurel County. 20% of votes. I don't know how they determine, how they know 20% of votes are in unless they can automatically tell how many ballots are in. If they're saying 20% of votes are in, then we can multiply 3,400 by 5, and that puts us about 2019 levels. They may just be using 2019 levels there. But you got something for me?
James Callaghan commented, how long does the election last for? He's foreign. He said he's foreign. How long does the election last for?
Polls are, okay. James Callaghan. All right, so if you want to submit questions, I forgot to mention that. There's a live chat thing on there. so we have to be careful about what we repeat on air. But James Callaghan asks, how long does the election last for? There were 3 days of early voting, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of last week, and then today is Election Day. Polls closed at 7. There was a rumor that I heard from John Cox as well that one of the polling areas in Louisville got shut down for an hour, so they've extended that. But by about 8 o'clock Eastern time, everything's going to be shut down and no more votes will be cast. Then they just start the process of counting. The polls that have closed already in Eastern Kentucky are they're already counting votes there, which is kind of what we're looking at here. Let's see here, Floyd County. There's a lot of these counties over here in Eastern Kentucky where the flooding was, and Andy Beshear visited them a lot. And there was actually another kind of scandalous thing that Andy Beshear did, is they were having a campaign rally in the county where all of the flooding happened, which was, started with a W? It's not Wolf. Man, my brain's not working. Anyway, the main county in Eastern Kentucky where they had all the flooding, then generally, then if a governor is going to give like some type of relief to a natural disaster area, then they'll go give the relief and then, go like a block down the street and then do their campaign rally if they're in the middle of an election. But they didn't do that this time. They just set up their campaign rally and then they were handing the checks to people or handing the relief to people with the Andy Beshear signs behind them, which is extremely just, unethical. I mean, it's the same thing either way, but, I think it shows kind of how desperate Andy Beshear maybe thought. I don't know if their polling was showing that, but maybe their internal polling was showing that things were getting a little tighter than he wanted, and he got a little desperate, little unorganized. All right, so let's look at Floyd County now. That's 17% in, and Andy Beshear's leading pretty big. Let's look at Floyd County now and Floyd County in. Oh, I missed it. Nope, that's it. Okay. So it's kind of tight in 2019, and Andy Beshear won. He won by 900 votes to this area right here. Wolf, McGoffin, Floyd, Knott, and Breathitt County. We're going to keep an eye on those here in the first part to see how things are going. Basically, Daniel Cameron is going to have to, nearly every candidate in Kentucky is going to have to win the election in Western Kentucky. Mitch McConnell, by the time Western Kentucky polls close, he's already in the lead or so close to the lead in national elections that he is, Western Kentucky is just icing on the cake for him. So as we get to the 7 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock slow time, then as we get closer to there, then we'll kind of check on the accounts statewide, and that's going to tell us I need to stop putting my hand in front of my face. Kind of tell us where we're where we're going to be at when it comes to Western Kentucky. So in Eastern Kentucky, the things that are really important for Andy Beshear are this blue area right here from 2019. This area is a little strange from 2019. If this turns red, any of these go red, then it could be a really good night for Daniel Cameron. These are heavily unionized, if I remember correctly. Heavily unionized places, but they were tight. This one was tight. Yes, so if you get in areas like Nicholas County and they start flipping for Daniel Cameron, then things could be looking really good for him. Obviously, Frankfort-Lexington area, really important, Jefferson County, and then Henderson County in Western Kentucky. That's kind of surprising from 2019, so we're going to keep an eye on that. And then Warren County, most of the time, is pretty close to a toss-up as far as the vote numbers go, but leans Democrat. So we're going to keep an eye on Warren and on Henderson, I reckon, if they're still in the race by the time we get there. They might call it before then. Somebody needs to keep up with this, too, because if Fox News calls this before Western Kentucky closes, then I can go home and take some Dayquil, In 2020, then all of those counties went red. So, no question there. What was that county we weren't looking at? Perry County. We were looking at Floyd County. So 2020, here's the difference. Floyd County, Trump wins, like, just destroys Biden. Absolutely annihilates him in that county. And then in 2019, so you see people that voted against Bevin voted for Trump. And I have heard just, through word of mouth that was a demographic that the Cameron people have really targeted. People that voted for Beshear in 2019 voted for Trump in 2020. They really pushed that demographic. And I think that's probably why you see President Trump coming out to endorse Daniel Cameron whenever he did, to kind of shore up that vote and make sure that as much as possible was going to Daniel Cameron. Anything else on the comments, or is everybody good? All 16.
We got a comment about the teacher pension. Was a really big issue that hurt Bevin.
Yes, and then Andy Beshear ended up going in and changing everything with the teacher pension like 6 months later. So I actually had this is kind of off topic here and probably boring for everybody, but I was laying some flooring for somebody at their house, and the guy that I was talking to, then he was actually involved kind of in the software side of implementing the new software for the teacher pension stuff that was coming up. And there was all this work that had to be done over a year and a half. And he was supporting Andy Beshear, hated Matt Bevin, said that what Matt Bevin did was terrible, but really loved what Andy Beshear did. And so we were talking about that. I was like, well, a bunch of teachers retired, after Andy Beshear changed all of the rules so that their pensions wouldn't get cut. And he said, yes, but it was because it was supposed to be staggered, and if they retired by this time, then they would still get this much pension. He went through all the numbers. I didn't write them down. I don't know what the numbers are. But I asked him, I was like, okay, so, is the software implemented yet? He said, it's almost implemented. I said, so did you work on that all the way through? He's like, oh, no, I retired like 4 months ago. And so the guy that was defending Andy Beshear's way of handling the teachers, the education system's pension thing, he actually retired. I thought that was kind of funny. And I don't know all the numbers on that. I know that a lot of teachers came out against Matt Bevin in 2019 and said that they did. So if those people vote for Daniel Cameron, I guess we'll see where they are. But a large percentage of teachers retired in Kentucky, and there's actually a teacher shortage. That is a problem for this next election cycle that's coming up. If you look at the title of the YouTube thing too, then the title of it is, which I had to title it, and I'm not good at titling things, is consequences. And that is something to remember tonight as you're watching, if you're watching the elections, or the coverage, then elections do have consequences. And so we can sit around and say, well, I'm too busy to vote, or I'm too busy to do this, or I'm too busy to do that. But if we do have lower voter turnout or even higher voter turnout, and Andy Beshear wins, then we have to deal with those consequences for the next 4 years. And that is something to keep in mind as you're watching this go on. This is very serious. It's not just a game. The things that Andy Beshear has done in Frankfurt, and how he does not work with the legislature, and the initiatives that he pushes in the education system, in the Department of Education in Kentucky.
Unknown caller.
And with we're having a call. Somebody's already got Christmas music. Oh, wow. I am so glad I heard that, Kyle. Maybe turn it on silent. I'm getting texts to shout out like football teams. I know there's not. Anyway. Yeah, I am a Louisville Cardinal fan, for those who don't know. I don't admit it very often, but was it Brother Bird calling in? Hello? Call him back and see if you can get him on there.
From Frankfurt?
No, it's not Frankfurt.
502-234-9597.
No, you might call them off of Bluetooth and see who that is. College football rankings, I guess, are tonight. So, all right, so let's go back to updating the important stuff, which unfortunately, I guess, is not Louisville football. You might want to call and see, because there were a couple of people Brother Josh had that were supposed to call in, so you might want to call them and see who that is, who might call in. Right now on the vote totals, then we have Daniel Cameron 11,527, and we're really until probably about 7 o'clock fast time, 6 o'clock slow time. This large number right here is going to be kind of deceiving, or not something that we can always pay attention to. You're going to see vote count come in. 0% in from Jefferson County. How surprising.
They were calling about my car's updated warranty.
Kyle has somebody calling him about his car's updated warranty. So, I'm sure he's jumping right on that to extend that warranty out. So this larger number here, this 13,000 to 10,000, is going to be really hard to really go off of until about 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. There is a lot that's going to come in from both sides over here in Eastern Kentucky. Andy Beshear has to win massive in Eastern Kentucky most of the time is how it works out. Let's check with that first county, Laurel County. Well, they got 10% more in. They are up to 5,000 votes. Let's see if we can get back and figure out which one Laurel County is. Yeah, and we're looking for, they still got about 12 more thousand if they're going to match 2019 numbers. Anyway, back to what I can't remember if I got interrupted from some long spiel about something nobody cares about or not. But elections do have consequences. And so whatever people have decided over the last 4 days out of the 4 out of 5 days of voting in Kentucky, whatever they have decided is going to not only affect the next 4 years, our businesses or our places of work or our families, our children, or what they learn at school. It's also going to affect them for many, many years down the road. There are young people that are going to enter into high school, or that just started in high school, that Andy Beshear is going to have a heavy influence on what they are taught in their school for the next 4 years. From the time that they are a freshman and don't care anything about politics till the time that they're a senior and they're hopefully, according to the education system, radicalized, then they are going to really going to feel the influence that he has over the education system during that time. The legislative system, has a difficult time holding him to account because of some dynamics there, which I'm sure will be updated. Next year during the legislative session. That's another thing to realize as well. There are a lot of people on the Republican side in the supermajority in the legislature that are really looking at tonight to kind of see if they can put the more conservative part of the Republican Party to the side or not. So if Andy Beshear wins, then they're going to say, well, the reason Andy Beshear won is because we were too conservative. And that is always the curse of the Republican Party, it seems, is that we tend to have people that stick around for a long time in the Republican Party and never can seem to get voted out, that just really don't like being conservative. And so the election tonight is going to have a lot of consequences for that as well, and then there will be legislative elections next year that will kind of seal this whole election season. So whenever the governor gets elected tonight, or hopefully not tomorrow, I do have a question coming in. Is Andy going to win 3 days from now after they count the mail-in ballots? Well, I guess we'll have to see. We're keeping a close eye on Jefferson County's vote totals that are coming in. Okay, so Oldham County is a little bit above. Maybe Jefferson County polls are closing a little bit later because of some disturbances at the polling locations. I'm sure there's all kinds of shenanigans going on there in Jefferson County. But they have 0 votes in, and Oldham County, which is, a rock's throw, they border each other, just a few miles away, already has 30% of their votes in. So that's LaGrange area. I believe that area does have at least one Republican representative in the legislature. So I'm really kind of looking at that, and I'm sure that guy is too, to see kind of how he needs to shape his campaign for next year, because that's always a tough county to be in. Let's see here. 20, 30%, 12%, 23%, 24%, 41%. Okay, so we got a good sample size in Casey County. Let's look at Casey County in 2019 and see what it says. Oh, I missed it. There it is. 4,700 votes. 4,000. Man, I'm still cracking up about them calling you about that warranty. Oh. It's somebody important calling. All right, so we're at 2,000 votes right now, and they're saying 50% is in. And yeah, right around 4,700. So either they're projecting lower voter turnout now than we had in 2019, or they're just making it up as they go, which is very possible. Here's something else that I think is going to be interesting throughout the night, is looking at the down ballot races. You already have quite a difference between the Republican and the Democrat in Secretary of State. So what this shows me, again, very small sample size here, 3% of votes counted. But it looks like, if these numbers are correct, that you have about 5,000 people that voted for Michael Adams, that voted for pretty much everybody on the Republican ticket, that did not vote for Daniel Cameron. So that's why the polling is so tight, and probably why the race, people are calling it a coin flip. So you have actually Republican voters that will vote Republican in every other aspect, but the most powerful position in, the executive branch, then they will vote Democrat. Makes a lot of sense, especially for a guy who actually has the power to appoint people like Jason Glass. Oh, vote dump from Jefferson County. Woo! 44,000 votes dumped from Jefferson County. That's how Jefferson County does things, by the way, in case you didn't know. It's tons of votes at a time, and random times. They have 15.9% coming in, 34,000 to 10,000. Let's look at 2019 numbers. Wrong thing. Are we good on is the computer on there, Kyle? Good deal. All right. Let's look at Jefferson County. Yeah, so that's a lot. That's 186 plus 87 is whatever. Josh Foles could do this math very fast. 90,000. That's about 276. 277. And they're looking at 44 right now. Yeah, that's pretty close. So Jefferson County for sure is going to turn out to vote in this election. And that's why, Republican voter turnout in the rural counties is extremely important. Any more questions, or anybody from foreign countries asking me why I'm so, entertaining and magnanimous and charismatic? Any of those things? It was because of the car warranty thing. They hung up to call the car warranty place to get a car warranty going. So for me, like, I've seen a bunch of elections, I don't say a bunch. I'm only 33. It's not like I remember when Carter was elected or any of those things. But I've seen quite a few of these and tracked them, since I was probably 14 or so. And for me, then I say, I'm a little concerned that Daniel Cameron isn't, up or a little bit closer right now. And I'm concerned that Jefferson County is going to have a large amount of votes come in that we didn't see in 2019, which is always just very strange, to see people outpace, an election, to see people outpace 2019 in one county, but not in the rest of the state is troubling. Not because necessarily that there has to be something wrong going on. It's just that the Democrats literally have to just go to Jefferson County, and that's it. That's all they have to appeal to. Jefferson County, Lexington area, and then do what they can in the rest of the state. But if they win those areas, then, they think that they've won. So I'm a little concerned about that, but, who knows? I'm not a political genius or any of those things. All right, let's look at number Donald Trump in Jefferson County. Anyway, I cannot believe Donald Trump got 150,000 votes in Jefferson County. That is crazy. Yeah, so he's at 150, 228. You're looking at 380,000 right there. Roughly 379,000. And he is, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, I'm not a giant, rah-rah Trump guy. I'll vote for him if he wins the primary. I'm definitely not voting for Biden. And I'm not voting for third party because the stakes are too high. But, I don't fly Trump flags and do all that stuff. But people are going to be studying for decades his appeal to voters and how he appealed to who he appealed to. I mean, people are going, as long as the Democrats don't suppress everybody, people are going to write books and study the data about how he got Obama voters in 2016 or in 2012 to vote for him in 2016 instead of Hillary Clinton. I mean, that's still one of the craziest, just from a political science or the numbers perspective, one of the craziest things that has ever happened in politics. And his appeal, you just see him outperforming nearly every other Republican candidate, especially in 2016 in large, urban areas. That just was not the case. And what he has done with Hispanics, I mean, that is the Hispanic vote. As far as how he has brought a lot of that to the Republican side, him and DeSantis, I would argue, because a lot has happened there in Florida with DeSantis, then that's something that the Republican people, Democrat people, nobody in politics thought would ever happen. And so he's going to be, how he has changed the demographics of politics in the actual what type of people belong in each group is going to be something that people study for a long time. Unless you believe the Russiagate stuff and believe that Vladimir Putin rigged it so that Hillary Clinton couldn't have gotten in. And I think you can see now that Vladimir Putin really loves it whenever Democrats win elections because he can just do whatever he wants to. Oh, let's see here. Yes, I'm getting a question about Warren County. Shout out Jared Voles. Everybody knows him. About Warren County. Generally trends Democrat. I'm showing you here on the computer 2019 numbers. It's pretty tight, within 1,000 votes. And I don't know, I don't even remember this Hicks guy. That was an independent. I don't know if he influenced the election for Bevin or for Andy Beshear. I have no clue. Warren County, pretty tight for, how massively Trump won the rest of the state. But, within 9,000 votes there, but it did go. Again, something that we should all realize, that if Republicans showed up and turned out to vote like they do during presidential elections. If we just showed up in that, which I know is crazy for people to expect, but if we did that, we'd always have a Republican governor. Never have a Democratic governor again. Probably. Another fun fact about that, Kentucky, a Republican state. I think we've only had 2 Republican governors in like the last 50 to 60 years, 54 years, something like that. Don't normally have Republican governors in Kentucky, in case you were wondering. I'm going to refresh. All right, so total still, did we get another dump from them? Nope, same deal. Slowly trickling in. County. Says here that he was, what's the voting trend around Bowling Green area? I was down in that area last weekend and saw a lot of Andy signs. Yes, that's what we're talking about, which I answered part of your question but didn't answer the last part. Especially a lot of the younger people that are moving there that want to be close to Nashville, then they are, voting Democrat. So that's something that, as until our education system is fixed, especially higher education, because not only are the kids being indoctrinated in our schools in a lot of areas, not in every area, but in a lot of areas, especially in the big cities, then the people that are training them how to be teachers and what curriculums to teach, then they are even more radical than even the local, the local like big city school districts are. Like the big city school districts like JCPS are extremely, extremely, extremely radical, but nothing compared to what the people who actually train the teachers that go into JCPS. The college professors really have been the leading edge of radicalism in the United States for, pretty much since the 40s, definitely the 1950s. And the failure of, the conservative establishment to ever address that is one of the, that and allowing Roe v. Wade to go into law was one of the 2 worst decisions that conservatives have allowed to happen without fighting in this nation. And basically the reason why is, if you look at it from that direction, then we allowed the Democrats to kill our kids, and then we allowed them to educate our kids and tell our kids what they should believe. The ones that they couldn't get their hands on to murder, then we allowed them to teach them how they should live their life and what's right and wrong, and that's just terrible. Yeah, early vote is really, really. I was saying this number right here you couldn't really pay attention to because I thought it would be tight, but it is very high for Beshear right now, so that could be a troubling sign. I don't have anything from LaRue County yet. I did get a text from the guy there in LaRue County, and he said that there were still a ton of people in line to vote. And so that's a pretty good sign for rural areas if they're not, you see a lot of these counties over here that don't have any vote coming in. Where's the line at? A lot of these don't have any vote coming in. The reason why that is the case is because either they had a lot of people in line still that had not voted yet, or they have some kind of delay with the reporting, but most of the time it's because there's still a lot of people that have been voting. So that could be a good sign for Cameron, could be a good sign for Beshear. Again, not an expert. I'm going to check online and make sure they haven't called anything yet. Oh, Rashida Tlaib, first page news. In case you haven't been keeping up with Israel and Palestine, I'm sure that you have. And we did talk about how it is affecting this election a little bit because of the radicalization on college campuses and their voting in the election. But in case you haven't been keeping up with Israel and Palestine, then, as we are Christians and believe the Bible, we're supposed to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. What Hamas did there was terrible. And, there's been a large portion. They've always been surrounded since 1948. They've been, and before, even in Europe in the 30s and in the 20s, they've been surrounded by people that just want to wipe them out. And that's it. What we experience as conservatives is just the beginning stages of that same type of focus. It will get worse, probably. But Jewish people for, hundreds and thousands of years have always had to live around people that just want to exterminate them. Not just, keep them from having power. They want to exterminate them. And there have always been people in America that wanted to take up for them. And I'm not one of those. And neither should you be. The people of Israel have been through enough as far as that goes. And I'm glad that they're doing what they're doing right now. I think they're setting things as best they can in Gaza. You can read prophecy and come to some conclusions about where we are as far as end times. Oh, another Christmas song.
It's the same Christmas song.
Is it another warranty? Are you getting 2 warranties on your car?
Might be healthcare. Senior healthcare.
Was it somebody with speaking English? Do you know?
I didn't answer.
Oh, you didn't answer. Okay.
No.
Well, missed out on your car warranty there, buddy. Yeah. All right, let's do a deep dive into Fayette County. 20% reporting in, that is Lexington area. 18,000 to 4,500. 2019. 2019. What is? Oh, we might have somebody that has called in. They had 100,000 votes in Fayette County last time.
No, this is Jordan Bulls. I'm here with the Josh Calloway podcast.
Jordan Bulls. Keep calling you Kyle. Yeah, so that's pretty. I mean, they're expecting 2019 numbers in Fayette County, and it looks like they're expecting lower voter turnout in rural areas. If that is the case, then it is going to be a little bit different, a little bit difficult for Cameron. I have some talking about it. Was that for the show, for whatever this is? Who is it? Is it Brother Bird?
Is this Brother Bird? Yes, sir. It is.
Awesome.
Give me just a second. I'm going to patch him in.
He's getting patched in right now. Yeah, so big vote totals right now is looking like 30,000 ahead. I think if Andy Beshear comes in, within 30 to 40,000 by the time, all of Eastern Kentucky and Louisville is counted. Do we have him? Brother Bird?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, brother, can you just give us an update on, first of all, just tell us what you do there in LaRue County and, give us whatever you have and talk a little bit about the election as far as how you've experienced it so far.
Well, I'm the LaRue County GOP chairman, been in that position for just a little over a year. And so we just new to it, but we got involved in it. I don't have a lot of big numbers. Nothing's been released. I can tell you I was by our main voting precinct today, and it was busy every time I went. I went by there about 3 times, and it was just people coming and going. So that much of it looks exciting that we had some turnout.
Yeah.
We don't have a big county, but when you see people there all day,
yes, sir.
That's a good hope for us. So.
Yeah, that's really good. And we're seeing that in a lot of, there's not really many results coming in a lot of these red counties out east. And, a lot of times it's because they have a lot of people delaying the vote by being in line and things like that. So have y'all there in LaRue County, I think you said that maybe y'all used to be pretty heavily Democrat. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We flipped just a little over a year ago to a Republican county.
Oh, wow.
And that was monumental for our little county. A lot of folks say we'd always be Democrat.
Yes,
so when it flipped, it was a big effort by a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm.
and but it's really, and it seems like the number just keeps growing right now. We're quite a bit bigger.
And how, I know that you were probably involved in a lot of that. I think a lot of Kentucky deals with this, states that are, or counties that are traditionally Democrat. How do you go about the process of flipping those Republican? Is it just registering more Republican voters, or making people aware of more issues, or how do you do that there?
I think it's a combination of both. Registering voters, which I think when you look at our number, we're about as registered as we can be as a county. But I think let's say like we're either 101 or 103% registered. And
that doesn't stop Jefferson County, brother.
yeah. We're somebody's doing a real good job when you think about it that way. But I think more people are just involved. There's issues that people are awake to the fact that they got to be involved, and so that's making people jump sides or get on the side that they think they most align with now.
What issue would you say, like a lot of issues have come through in the past year or 2 years, what issue would you say that has been the biggest driving factor driving people to really wake up and come to the Republican side of things and see how things are really going in the society?
Well, it's the obvious ones. There's a lot of wokeness that people are just not a part of, and a lot of people will make you think there's a big number, but when you get down to talking to people one-on-one and what a lot of people's core values are, that they want a traditional family, and they want to raise their youngins right, and they want to have some say in their kids' school, and then there's more people that are now paying attention to what's being brought on. I think, good things come out of COVID. It was because a lot of people got woke up that, hey, there's some things going on we need to know about.
Right.
And when you start shutting people down and closing things up and start taking freedoms away, that'll wake people up. And, that's the big hope right there.
And have you? I mean, I know you've talked to several people in LaRue County, but what was there like one main issue that was kind of motivating people in LaRue County to really get out and vote one way or the other, or was it Trump's endorsement, or have you heard any of that? What you think the case is there?
I think Trump endorsement always helps.
Yeah.
But for sure, I mean, when you look at, I think he won our state like 70%, so it's a big vote. So if you have any good sense of your running, you'd want Trump's support, and you'd want to be on the right side of that.
Right.
So I think Mr. Cameron did some good things when he endorsed Trump as president in 2024 recently. That probably helped him.
Yeah. But
I think maybe a lot of people are just so tired of a governor trying to say you can and can't do, and you're going to have to do what I say. And it just pushed people to a breaking point. And then I've talked to a lot of Democrats when I talked to them, why they changed, and they said, well, just what the party represents is no longer what I represent.
Right.
They want their kids, their boys to be boys and girls to be girls.
Right.
And they don't want them to compete against other people, and they don't want people pushing things down their agenda to make them think that you ought to consider to be something different. And I think that's waking a lot of people up.
Yes, I think that has been the case as well. We do quite a bit of work there in LaRue County and Hardin County, and I live here in Breckenridge County, and that really the education system has become super, a hyper-focused issue. A lot of people saw what their kids were learning in school, and then they saw what maybe the curriculum was pushing, and then, they saw what they were watching in their kids' programming because they were around them all the time, and it just really, it seems like to me, people really started focusing on, hey, what are my kids really being exposed to, and unfortunately, I'm afraid that we have a lot of younger people, that are college age or career age, that it's too late for them. I don't know how it is where, what you see, but it seems like we have a lot of young people that don't work or don't do any of those things. You know what I'm saying? Do you think that's pretty close? Or?
Oh yeah, I think that's right on the money. And it seems like if there's any hope, sometimes saving them from going to college, you might be able to reel them back some.
Yeah.
Because what they've learned along the way is glorified even bigger sometimes on the college campuses, and they think, well, maybe all these people I grew up around are wrong.
Yeah.
Instead of, hey, wait a minute, their people are all right.
Yeah.
That's starts to affect people. And I think the mom and dads are to the point of, why don't they just know how to add and multiply and read? I talked to, I think it was three or four parents last year that their child was going into 8th grade and they had to sign their own sports physical at the doctor's office, and they couldn't write their name in cursive writing. And the parents were like, "What? Well, write your name." And he said, "I did." And they said, "No, you got to sign it." And they said, "I did sign it." And then they couldn't even sign their first and last name.
Oh, goodness.
And these were young men going to 8th grade, and the parents were just blown away.
Yeah,
so
that's...
You get to 8th grade, you can't write your name in cursive writing. We've really dropped the ball in the education system.
And I can't understand how something so convoluted and complicated and so messed up that takes hours and hours to convince somebody of, like, that that you are a boy but you can turn into a girl. How they get so well educated in that, but then can't learn the simple things like how to read and write and do math that's going to help them actually work a job later. Like, what are they supposed to do for jobs later on? You know, how are we supposed to make money, and where's all the tax dollars going to come from that all the Democrats want to spend if nobody can work jobs and make money, you know?
Yeah, I think the more people get educated too on how much of our budget in the state of Kentucky every year goes to education, and then what we're producing for our dollar.
Yes.
And I think when people see that number, they go, "Are you sure that that's the right number?" And you're like, "This is the numbers. You know, go to the state website, look them up for yourself."
Yeah.
And we're spending way too much money to get kids that come out of high school that can't do the simple things.
That's right. This brings us to another thing, and might be the last thing that we talk about here for the next few minutes, but Brother Josh is always talking about that. He said the education system seems to be the only place in the state or in the nation where you can do worse at your job and then get a raise all of the time. So I know that you know Brother Josh, and you've been to several of his rallies. If you could just tell us, you know, kind of how your organization there in LaRue County, the GOP in LaRue County, thinks about him and what you have seen, seeing him around and stuff like that at different dinners, and how, you know, how people kind of interact with him around the state.
I think one of the biggest takeaways I have from Brother Josh is I knew him several years, many years when I think about it, before he was elected to an office. And he is the same man right now as he was then, with maybe more drive to get things right.
Right.
And so we've watched him in action. Like, we homeschool, but we have some kids that would like to play sports. So one of the issues for us was being able to play in the county that you reside in if you want to try out for a sport, if you pay taxes. And there's been a bill that's been, I think it's 15, 16 years, that every year that bill has died in a committee. They just, comes from committee on committees to a committee and then just dies there. And so this past year, there was a big push. There was a great bunch of people, Josh and Candy Massaroni and some others that were on the education committee, and the bill was so perfectly written. It was, I think it was one page, like 9 items, and it should have been super easy to do.
Right.
And we was told, well, we can't do anything with it till it comes to committee. And they held it in committee on committees and never would send it. And for years we were told, well, unless it comes to here, we can't do anything. But then I watched how Brother Josh said, let me attach this to amendment and we can move this around. And they killed that in that bill. They killed it that night in the committee on committees and never sent it. So you see the corruptness of that turnaround, but you also see that some fella who's been there now his second year said, we can work if we'll do it.
Yes.
And I love the work ethic.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and that is, I can definitely attest to that. I've known him since I was pretty young, and he's the same person now and working really, really hard for the people of Kentucky. And I know that he's been, out helping campaign and things like that, and getting some, helping around his district with Daniel Cameron's campaign and stuff like that, and giving a few speeches and introductions and all that stuff. But and I think people can really recognize that he's just authentic and real. That just comes through automatically. And that's so rare for politicians.
It is, and it's a great thing when you talk to him. He doesn't change. Sometimes you talk to a politician and they'll give you an answer if he's in one crowd and give you another answer in another crowd.
Yeah.
And sometimes you know that they're talking to the crowd that they're in. But when I've been around Bo Josh, it's the same answer
Yes.
every place he goes. And I think he's been great. I think every time I see him, I think he's even a better representative and just doing a finer job. And you can see across the state when people deal with him, they say, this man is legit.
Yes.
And so I think greater and bigger things for him. He may want to be right where he's at and work, but he'd be an easy fellow to get behind in a statewide race. Just somewhere down the line. That's my thought, but
that's totally fine.
I'm just one little guy.
Well, that's
but
what
I think
yeah. And
if we had a house full of people like Brother Josh,
right,
we get more people elected that were that.
Yeah,
our Commonwealth would turn into something special.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on, and I don't see any results from LaRue County yet still, so maybe they're still down there voting for Daniel Cameron, but thank you for what you've done and for all the work that you've done in LaRue County as well, raising awareness and all. That's not an easy thing to do, especially in a county there that, people get kind of set in their ways, and being able to switch all that over has been a great blessing. I know that you've prayed for those people and labored there for many years, and we appreciate you, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, sir. It's good to talk to you.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right. That's pretty good. So let's go back to vote totals. Lexington is killing it right now for Andy Beshear. The votes are getting counted pretty slowly. Okay, let's go back to Laurel County. That was the first place that we looked at. Laurel County. I lost it. That ain't it. Why? My brain's not working now. All right, let's try this again. Laurel County. I'm pretty sure I just looked at that one. So we have 12,000 votes, 71%, and 4,700 with 100% in. 2023, we have 96 and 44 with 80% in. So that's pretty close to 2019 turnout. Beshear or Cameron is really needing to kind of exceed 2019 turnout in a lot of rural areas, I think. And I'm going to be interested to see how in some of those bigger counties in Western Kentucky, how he has, what the percentage of turnout is there. Because it looks to me like Lexington and Fayette County and Jefferson County are for sure turning out to vote. If there's 20% in, then that means we can multiply 42 times 5, roughly 40 times 5 if we take off the 1.7%, to give us about 200,000 votes is what Andy Beshear is on pace for in Jefferson County. And that is well above, about 13,000 above what he was at in 2019. So Cameron is really going to have to outpace. Now, I don't know. You don't know how accurate this percentage of votes counted is. They're saying 21.7%. That could turn out to be exactly like it was in 2019. So I'm not sure there. All right. I've got some numbers coming in. Was this the...
I don't know who that is.
Okay. I believe that this is... Yes. So this is LaRue County here. I have numbers from... This is a quarter. This is the main center, and there's 3 other voting precincts. So for governor, then total we have 1655 to 907. I'm going to look at 2019 and see. It's Nelson. Yeah. So right now he says that there's 4 more areas to come in, and he has 1655 to 907. You see Secretary of State Adams has 1946 and Wheatley has 565. Cameron is up in the governor in LaRue County. He is up by 700 votes. Again, something that I want to point out here. Secretary of State, the Republican candidate, has 1,946 votes. Attorney General, the Republican candidate, has 1,904 votes. Auditor, the Republican candidate, has 1,969 votes. Treasurer, 1,905. Agriculture Commissioner, 1,626. The numbers are off there on the... For some reason, the Agricultural Commissioner and the Governor are very similar in numbers. But Cameron is about roughly 250 to 300 votes behind the other Republican candidates in the down ballot races. So either, there could several things be going on there. What has been told to us is that Andy Beshear is just really popular in the state of Kentucky. Right now, Andy Beshear has the weight of the incumbency behind him, and so that's going to pull some votes from the Republican side. But, he did this against Matt Bevin as well, and so things are a little different. There. Again, LaRue County, total votes in the governor's election in 2019, total votes were about 4,700. I might be stupid because I don't think that's the case. 3,835 plus 700. Yeah, that's pretty close. 4,500 votes, and right now they have about 2,500 reporting in. So, depending on how many people came to the other area, then we'll see what their voter turnout was. The percentages look pretty close. So if let's just say that Daniel Cameron runs in the exact same vote totals as, and you can forward that stuff to me too, Kyle. As you go on, you can forward that stuff to me. Then let's just say he runs the exact same numbers as Matt Bevin did, and Andy Beshear runs the exact same numbers as he did in 2019. Then he only won by, I think, he won by 5,000 votes. So basically, if Beshear has gained any momentum, then Daniel Cameron has to overcome that momentum that Andy Beshear has gained in 4 years, and then overcome it by at least 5,000 votes. So that's kind of how close the numbers really are. They're extremely, extremely tight here whenever it comes to the task that Daniel Cameron has. All right, let's look at Lexington. They have quite a high percentage coming in. We're going to hit refresh, make sure we have the latest, up-to-date, high-tech information that we can find. Lexington, we have 47,000 for Andy Beshear with 56% in. 2019, he had 73,000. So they're really projecting quite a bit more turnout in Lexington and in Jefferson County than they had in the past. Again, that's projections. Once all of it comes in, then we'll know. Once all of the vote totals come in, then we'll know kind of what's going on. The percentages are really good in Casey County, which we had looked at before. Laurel County, the percentages are just a tad off. He's about 3 percentage points lower. They're still stuck at that 80% vote total coming in. And then we're going to really be paying attention to Laurel County, LaRue County, Knott County, I think was the one, to kind of see how voter turnout is in rural areas. Yeah. So he's off in his percentages a little bit, Beshear has almost the same totals now that he had in 2019, and that's with 80% of the vote coming in. So he could pick up, a few more votes there. And then, are we good on the chat?
Yeah.
No Ukrainian spam bots or anything like that?
No, not yet.
Okay, my wife hasn't commented about how embarrassing I am. I'll be surprised if that doesn't happen. Oh, okay. Well, you don't have to do that. Yeah, I'm constantly embarrassing her, so that's totally fine. Brother Josh hadn't said shut it down. It's a train wreck, tornado, or anything like that? Nope. Okay. All right, good deal. They are in service right about now, so we'll remember them in prayer as well. That is one thing that I have thought about quite a bit as well over the last couple of days is the importance of prayer. The importance of prayer in this election. It's a great thing to get out and vote, and that you should do that. And if we all got out and voted like we should, then probably wouldn't be dealing with a lot of problems like we do. But the Lord is still able to stir the hearts of men, and sometimes it seems like you've done all that you can do. You've worked, you've told people to go vote, you've helped them, you've exposed as much as you can expose about our current terrible governor, and then it just comes down to what people are going to do, if they're going to show up or not. And all you can do is pray and trust not only that the Lord has it in control, but that it's going to be okay. And sometimes that's hard to do, especially whenever you recognize the damage that somebody like Andy Beshear has done in our state and in our education system. But there's strength there, and that there's people that's going to suffer because of it, but that people make choices, and the Lord does not override the free will of humans, and he doesn't force us to do what he wants us to do. But even despite all of that, if everybody in the world chose evil, and there was a day whenever that happened, that was Noah's day. If everybody in the world chose evil, then God and God's people would still be just fine. No problems at all. And that doesn't mean there's not persecution. Doesn't mean that there's not consequences, as the title says, for voting like a bunch of stupid idiots like people do sometimes. But it does mean that God has not lost 1 ounce of power if Andy Beshear wins tonight, and that's an encouraging thing for me as well. Let's see here. So we got 30% in, and now we're going to start paying attention to these vote totals here, because you can see some Western Kentucky votes starting to come in. And we're going to remember Henderson County and Warren County is what we're going to look at. Brother Kyle, can I get a pause for like 2 minutes to...
Yes, sir.
You tell me whenever I'm good to go. I'll be back in like 1 minute and 30 seconds. All right, somebody let Brother Kyle know in the chat. Make sure that we're back online because the results are about to start pouring in here. So we needed to take a little bit of break, and I feel tons better. So the results are coming in from Western Kentucky, and this is when things are going to start getting good, and we're going to start watching some Fox News stuff, which you might not want to. Fox News doesn't always have all the great stuff on there, so I might switch this over. Okay. I want to just keep an eye on them to make sure that they don't start calling things. You can see some blue there nothing called yet. You can see some blue there in Western Kentucky, so Andy Beshear is leading in a couple of counties there. Early amounts of vote coming in. I am really, really interested. This is just my personal opinion, and again, having looked at a lot of these counties over the years, I'm really interested in these areas that do not have any vote counted yet. I'm interested as to why that is the case, that most of the time they have at least something in. If we're looking at these numbers here, then Laurel County, they're saying, which we have looked at several times tonight, then they're saying that roughly 90% is in, and 10,800 votes. That gives you about another 1,000 votes, 1,086 votes, maybe 1,100 votes to come in, which is a little bit below 2019 turnout, and Beshear is higher in his vote total than he was in 2019, which you expect a little bit. But I really want to see something like Laurel County with Daniel Cameron having about 14,500 to 15,000 votes, if possible. If I'm feeling really good about him really dominating this election. We have, let's see, somebody said check Pike County. All right, 0% reporting in. So get on it, Pike County. I don't know what's going on here. Fayette County is on it. They got 90,000 reporting in, or 90% reporting in. 71, 72 to 29. We can, look at percentages there. There's a lot in, so that's pretty good. And Bevan was 65 to 33. So that's, I don't know. As far as numbers go, then you have a little bit of an incumbent bump with Bevan in 2019 and Beshear a little bit lower. And then in 2023, then you have now Beshear with a little bit of an incumbent bump and Daniel Cameron's down. So that's not the end of the world, but it's not, the trends aren't looking very good to me. So, and, if you really like having drag queens and trans people in the state capitol building, then you're probably very happy about the results so far. So Andy Beshear loves those people. All right, so we got Franklin County. That's another good one to look at. That's around Frankfort. I believe that is Frankfort. Am I correct? Is it Scott County or Franklin County that's Frankfort? I think it is Franklin County. It's hard to tell on these maps. I mean, I'm not a Kentucky map expert or anything, topographist. So Frankfort, I believe, is in Franklin County, and I think it's always super interesting that nearly every state capital in the United States always votes Democrat. That kind of tells you who likes to be around the places of power in all of the states. Now let's look at 2019. Yeah, Frankfort, Franklin County, 61 to 32. Yeah, still same kind of trend as you see in Fayette County for Andy Beshear there. So Democrat areas are going really, really Democrat. And the Republican areas are just kind of hanging tough where they were in 2019 with a little bit of an incumbent bump. There is a chance, as has happened often in Senate campaigns in Kentucky, that Western Kentucky really shows out for the Republican candidate, and that's kind of what they bank a lot of stuff on. But your numbers got to be good enough in the eastern part to where the western part can actually overcome it. Jefferson County, still 21.7% voted in. Now, I just listened to somebody today talk about how Louisville is the driving engine of the state of Kentucky, how all the tax dollars come from there, how it's the most high-tech, the most cultured area in the state of Kentucky, and how it drives everything in the state of Kentucky. But they count their votes slower than anybody in the state of Kentucky. I wonder if there's a correlation between JCPS not being able to teach kids how to read and write and do math and their slow vote counting. Oh, they just dropped 4%. Oh, good job, Jefferson County. They must have heard me yelling at them. John Marcus Cox is going to call in here in a little bit. I'm actually going to text him, and he is from Jefferson County. He was doing a couple things tonight, but he was from Jefferson County, he is from Jefferson County. And how are you looking? So he's from Jefferson County and can kind of give us some inside scoop on what's going on there. And he's kind of connected pretty well with some people up there and has some pretty funny stories sometimes. So overall, that's looking a little bit better. You know, you don't want to get to the 300,000 mark and Daniel Cameron still be. That means that the lead is expanded too much. You look at a lot of counties over here that are blue, for instance. This isn't like, you know, national elections where, you know, you can look at the counties and you know, okay, this county generally goes Republican, this county generally goes Democrat, and I can project automatically what it's going to do. You can't really do that. Some of this you have to wait and see and kind of test out. So we're going to look at Breathitt County. I think this little area here was blue last time. Magoffin, Breathitt, Floyd. Let's look at 2019. Breathitt, very, very close. Magoffin, not so close. There's not a lot of vote totals there, though. Floyd, 900, not. Very, very, very close. Okay. So let's look at Floyd in now. Oh. So there's 45% in. Okay, so Floyd County's, that's pretty close to 2019 turnout. It might be a little bit higher. 59, he's 900 behind there. He's about 400 behind there. That's pretty much on the same level. Yeah, this is so strange. Some of the okay, here's a good. Oh no, that's Pulaski. Never mind. Laurel still 90%. All right, let's look at Pulaski County. 86% in, very close to Laurel County. Very similar voting demographics. Pulaski County, 1476 for Bevan. 70 to 28%. Yeah, just a little bit behind. I think you can call that an incumbent bump. But again, what you really need, the percentages, like if you know how percentages work. But if you have 10,000 votes and you have 70% of 10,000, then you get 7,000 votes, right? That makes very, very logical sense. I know that I'm over-explaining everything like I'm a kindergarten teacher. But the more votes that you have come in, then those percentages can be a little bit lower, but you're still escalating in the vote totals. And at the end of the day, it's the number of votes that come in that's important. And so Daniel Cameron could be below 70%, Andy Beshear above 30%, but if that number goes instead of 5 that it was in 2019 for Matt Bevin, if it goes up to about 16 to 17, then you're seeing a larger voter turnout and your margin isn't as important. And so you can, you can actually win the election pretty handily, even with the percentages not being the same. So we're going to keep an eye on Pulaski and Laurel. Those are, that's right around, Kyle, is that in Somerset? Is that correct? Somerset, I know you're down in that area. Somerset, Danville. Somerset, Kentucky is in Pulaski County. Yep. So that is that's a really important thing to take a look at. I think that's encouraging to me. It looks like maybe the voter turnout is just a little bit higher, and across the state that could really push him. I am interested to see all these. Now let's look at something that like Daniel Cameron is like crushing it in. So we got Casey County that he's really high in. That's got 80% in. That's Martin County. Let's look at Martin County in 2019. 72 to 25. 1596. Right now, 1208. Very similar. And he's a few percentage points higher. But we're looking at really, really similar turnout to 2019 so far. And I think that is what they are basing their percentages off of here. So if you look at where the vote totals are and where the percentages are, then it's very close. They're kind of projecting their percentage of how many votes have come in based on how many people voted in 2019, not in 2020. And so, if voter turnout is higher, then that percentage will not really go up, but the vote counts will keep going up. You'll be at that 99% reporting in for a lot longer is kind of how that works. Which you saw a lot of in the 2020 election because, a lot of counties and stuff and a lot of states were reporting, not Arizona was reporting like 99%, or not Arizona, but Pennsylvania was reporting like 98 or 99% in. But the vote totals just kept skyrocketing. And it's because you had, pretty close to, I think it was like 150 million people or 160 million people vote, which is like 20 or 30 million more than normally vote in a presidential election. And so you'll see that a lot of times in this as well. If it stays at 99% and the votes keep climbing, that means voter turnout is exceeding expectation, which we really want because that's good for Daniel Cameron and bad for Andy Beshear, who loves drag queens. All right. Why are you laughing? I'm just telling it like it is here, all right? He's got pictures with him. He lets them in the schools. Rand Paul's wife had a really good, Senator Rand Paul's wife had a really good line about that at Fancy Farm this year. It was pretty funny. I think she said the Democrats went from promising a chicken in every pot to drag queen in every school. I think that's what she said. That's pretty funny. Ohio County. I know where that's at. Hancock County. Breckenridge County. 0% reporting in. We can actually, I don't know. I don't think I have them. I don't have that guy's number. All right. John Ross Marcus Cox, a man with 4 names, is going to call in here in a few minutes. Did I send him your number to call in? Call the other number. He's about to call in and give us the scoop on Jefferson County. And this man is an absolute wild man. I don't know if y'all remember him being on Brother Josh's podcast before, but he is an absolute just maniac. But really, he's got a really good story as far as politics go about how he got kind of woke up to what is going on in not just in the country, but in the state. Whenever COVID was going on, and how he was kind of sitting around his house and, obeying all the COVID mandate rules and all of this stuff. And then he just kind of looked around one day, I think is what he said, or went to church or something. He's like, what am I doing? Why am I doing all this? And he'll share some of that as well. And the man talks like 90 miles an hour. If you see me, you've seen me talking for however long this is, and I pretty much can't get a word in edgewise, which I know will be a blessing to everybody out there. Some of these vote totals are getting really close to coming in. We're still looking at those two. They're still at 90%. Here's some Northern Kentucky stuff coming in. So Boone County is a good thing to look at in Northern Kentucky. They have big vote totals. And to me, at least in my experience of following this, they're like a coin flip sometimes. They're right around Cincinnati. You just don't know. I think these 3 counties here that Andy Beshear wants to break even in, if he breaks even, then he might have a pretty good night. All right, Daniel Cameron, 19% in, or 93% in, 22,000 votes, 17,000. 17,000 votes. 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 Percentage is not very good, but vote total is pretty good. Yeah, 1,400. Man, it is so similar to 2019. That is so scary and weird. Here's one reason why this is super weird, too, just from there's an advertisement for Babbel, in case you're wanting to learn another language. Here's one reason why this is weird, too, because remember we said before that a lot of people that voted for Andy Beshear, and that means a lot of people that voted for Andy Beshear in 2019 voted for Trump in 2020. So if Andy Beshear is getting the same amount of votes, like there was one county where Matt Bevin had 5,000 and something votes, Andy Beshear had 5,900 and Matt Bevin had 5,000. And then in 2020, then the Democratic candidate only had 3,000 and something and Trump had 12,000, like a shellacking. That means that you have 2,000 people that voted for Andy Beshear that then voted for Trump or didn't vote for Joe Biden, And so that's a really strange thing to see are people that would vote for Donald Trump and then vote for Andy Beshear, so that makes no sense to me. I'm just going to be honest with you, but that's kind of where we are. All right. So let's look at Boone County. We looked at that 23,000. No. Actually, yeah, I misread that. So Cameron is really close already to Bevin's vote total. Really close to Cameron's vote total there. And we're seeing it kind of tighten up on this bigger part here too. Jefferson County is slow rolling the vote release. I mean, just a snail's pace. Again, supposed to be the most technologically advanced part of the state, and they are just absolutely slow rolling this. Probably on purpose. Fayette County, yeah, they're going to slow roll that last 8% too. They're probably going to hand count them or whatever, get the Democrat counters in there and get those counted. Yep. So let's look at this. I think this is kind of interesting. This is 2020 presidential election, which has a massive voter turnout compared to 2019. 2020 presidential election, Biden has 228,000 votes. 2023, they're saying that Andy Beshear is going to get 4 times roughly 49,000 votes. So let's do some quick math here. So they're saying he's going to get 196,000. So he's going to outpace 2019 is what they're projecting. They're saying he's going to do better than he did in 2019. This is something that I think is super interesting. You're about 35,000 votes lower in Jefferson County in the governor's race, which has one of the lowest turnouts, versus the presidential race. That means that Democrats in Jefferson County always show up to vote. They always show up to vote. Republicans in Jefferson County, you got 22,000 there, and you had 150,000 that voted for Trump. So they're projecting Cameron to get about 80,000. Look at the disparity there. A 30,000 vote difference between a massive voter turnout for a presidential election for the Democrats, and then you have like a 70,000 vote difference for the Republicans in an area where you need every Republican vote that you can get. You're looking at 88,000 there. 2019, then Bevin got 87,000. I mean, you're dead on, Bevin. I mean, this is super strange how close. It's almost to the vote. Isn't that very strange? And there's no third-party candidate. Y'all might see me take some Dayquil live on air, so I know that's super exciting, and y'all are all waiting for that. So maybe the Hicks person that was a libertarian, maybe he was just like a total green, tree hugger, and maybe he took some votes from Andy Beshear in 2019. Maybe that's what it was. So, I would take a tree as governor over Andy. Not even a tree hugger, a tree as governor over Andy Beshear, probably. But at least they wouldn't, do all the things he has done. All right, so we're seeing some more Western Kentucky come in. Very, very light. Let's see how close it is let's pick McCracken County. Is McCracken Paducah? Is that correct? Let's look it up. Paducah is Paducah, Kentucky. He might benefit from, McCracken County. 32-39 and 20% reporting in. I don't think that's good. I'm going to look back at 2019, but I really don't think that is good. Yeah, that's not a very, unless Paducah comes in and then the rest of McCracken County comes in. But you're looking at about 20,000 votes there, and Daniel Cameron really needs to be about in the 16 to 17,000 range, in my opinion, because he's got to make up a lot of ground in Western Kentucky. I could be totally off here. That's just my opinion. McCracken County, Paducah population. That's what I want to know. Yeah, so it's mostly Paducah. There's 27,000 people there. Probably like 14,000 of them are registered, and then the rest of the county is probably 13,000 or so, because a lot of people don't register to vote. Let's look at Henderson County. Very, very, very close in 2019. About 500 votes separated them, and here, no results yet. Of course. A lot of these small counties are very important. Oh, I see some stuff going on here. Do we have any other questions? Everybody good?
A few things have been said. The best thing that Andy has going for him is the GOP legislature. Imagine how far off the rails he would get with a Democratic legislature.
Yes. So, commenter, are you on mics there? You're not. Okay. So basically, a comment was saying that imagine how bad it would be if there was a Democratic legislature in Kentucky. Yes, I don't know. Probably would not be living here. I couldn't, these people really love, the LGBTQIA community. And I don't know what I would do in that situation.
How that the legislature also overrode a couple of vetoes.
Yes.
Made by our governor.
Yes, the legislature overrode several vetoes from Andy Beshear, which then Andy Beshear turned around and took credit for on the campaign trail. Some of them.
Easy, fun money.
Yeah.
So the GOP made Andy look really good, just like the GOP made Bill Clinton look good after 94.
So I could talk into that a little bit as far as why the GOP passed all of those bills, that like the gambling bill and the marijuana bill, that Andy Beshear then signed into law and took credit for. I could give you my opinion on that. Let's see. Yeah, somebody texted in and said, let's look at the other things. Again, this is kind of the same deal that we were talking about before. You got Michael Adams, who, cowed down and did a campaign ad with Andy Beshear or something like that, which is just despicable. Like, why would you do a campaign ad with Andy Beshear instead of promoting Daniel Cameron? I mean, he literally just saw a poll number and decided he's going to jump on whatever train he thinks is winning right now. All right, so he's got some Democrats voting for him. Total, coward there, Michael Adams, in my opinion. I'm sure he's Secretary of State. I'm sure I'll be getting, audited or my finances looked into or something like that. You know how those things go whenever you buck the trend there. He's got about 30,000 more votes than Russell Coleman. Russell Coleman in those same areas has about 50,000 more votes than Daniel Cameron. So, again, you see a lot of people rolling over. Okay, here's something interesting to look at. Totally Democratic county, Jefferson County. Charles Wheatley, the Democrat, has 38,000. Michael Adams has 31,000. I don't understand how they're splitting. That right there is 85,000 votes, and on that side, that's only 69,000 votes. I don't understand how they're able to count. It's all the same ballots, so I don't understand. Unless people just went in and voted for governor and didn't vote for anything else, I have no idea. Kyle's. I think he's about to call in, so be ready for that. Okay, so let me kind of break that down. I wasn't explaining that very well. In Jefferson County, then for Secretary of State, a very Democratic county, then they have only counted 69,000 votes for right at 70,000 votes for Secretary of State. But they've counted 85,000 votes for governor. I don't know how you count 15,000 unless people are just voting for governor and not voting for anything else. But you got 25,000 that voted for Daniel Cameron there with more reporting in, and you got 6,000 more that voted for Michael Adams with less reporting in. So either a bunch of Democrats are voting for Michael Adams, which, I could totally understand that over over voting for anybody else. And then turned around and didn't vote for Andy Beshear or something. It's very weird. It seems like if you've counted 85,000 ballots in one race, you've probably counted 85,000 ballots in another race. So just keep an eye on that. Did you mention something else that I had missed there?
No. Easy Fun Money said you're doing a great job, though.
Okay. Thanks for the encouragement.
I got John Cox
calling in. All right, I'm going to unmute him. This is the main man from Jefferson County, a wheeler and dealer, a legislative powerhouse, an absolute force to be reckoned with for the rights of children in the education system and parents. Someone who probably needs very little introduction, and I hope that I have given him enough applause to be able to bring him in now. We have with us the man with four names, Mr. John Marcus. Ross Marcus Cox. Oh, man, I almost got it right.
You got to get it right now.
John Ross Marcus Cox. Got it.
The man that lives in infamy. How y'all doing tonight, man?
He lives to breathe and breathes to live. We're doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Hey, my fault I wasn't available right. Sometimes you got to pull an alpha move, you know what I mean? And you got to make your state representatives wait sometimes because they make us wait too much. You know what I mean?
Well, he's making us wait too. Yeah, he's not here, so sorry to disappoint you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he's going to be on later.
Yeah, I'm sure he's out doing his making his rounds.
Yeah, he's doing a ministry for the church tonight. So.
Oh, is he? Oh, gotcha. So tell me what's going on, man. I've been out here coaching my football guys up and got caught up, and I've been trying to get dialed into some of where the results are and all that. So what is the?
So here's I'll give you the overall numbers, and you tell me what you think. They're saying 48% of votes counted. Polls are closed everywhere. Beshear has 375.899. Daniel Cameron 329. So about 46,000 behind. Here's my concern. People like Russell Coleman are about 30 to 60,000 votes ahead of Daniel Cameron in the vote.
So listen, I hate to be right on certain things.
Okay.
And I try not to toot my own horn, but I have been worried. I've been worried all along that we may see a situation like that where we see Republicans all down ballot, and then the Democrats take. I mean, let's just be honest. First of all, it's just hard to beat an incumbent in general.
Yeah,
it's an uphill climb. I think when it comes to this, for Andy Beshear, it's so much is work in his favor in just the sense that like the teachers union has their claws in every county in the state, and like they lie to people.
Yeah.
You know, like my mother is a retired teacher but she's a daily she subs every day, so she's still like in the public school system every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But like the ground game it takes to like get votes, like individual votes, is like, if you're a normal, just like the average person, you just have no idea like how much blood, sweat, tears, organization. Like it's more than just like having the right ideas and principles. I mean, you got to have 1,000 stubborn people that are going to like mark off street by street.
Yeah.
That they've been to every house, knocked on every door, made all the calls, and I think it's hard for people, to do that. They get caught up in the ideological stuff and don't realize that ideology doesn't really win elections.
Yeah.
Your ground game does.
So is your opinion that if basically, similar voter turnout, maybe just a little bit more, Andy Beshear probably wins?
So do we know where Jefferson County report? Are they reporting yet?
Yeah, Jefferson County is at 30%.
I was gonna say, as low as the numbers are on the voter total, I was thinking there's no way that they're like 100% reporting yet.
Yeah.
Now, like, if they were 100% reporting, then I'd say, okay, we're probably
close,
cooking with bacon grease. You know what I mean? But like, if they're at 30%, but like, I don't think it has anything to do with. Here's what I'll say. I think I said this maybe on the last show, and I've told people all this, and I don't say this to like, again, not to toot my own horn or whatever. With what I do and with the stuff I do in Frankfort and the way I try to help them, I'm more of like an idea. I'm like the every Kentuckian. Right. You know what I mean? But for the most part, I've met and had a conversation with just about every single elected representative.
Yep.
I've had, but also most of the people that are like running for a major political office. I mean, I go to church with Russell Coleman. We go to the same service together. And so like, I've never even, I don't know if I've even been in the same room as Daniel Cameron.
Yeah.
So again, that is, to me, I don't think it says anything about him.
Mm-hmm.
To me, what it like, you get a lot of the McConnell stuff coming into play. And I think that's probably where that's coming from, is like the McConnell operatives. They ain't down with like getting in the mud with people like me.
Yeah.
And you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're a little more, old school blue blood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think a lot of people too thought, because McConnell has a stranglehold a lot of times on the vote here, especially depending on which year that his election is in. But I think a lot of people thought, with Cameron's connections with Mitch McConnell, that he would benefit from McConnell's ground game. Do you see that happening, or do you think that McConnell's ground game?
I don't really think McConnell has a ground game. I think it's like a totally different. McConnell wins a lot because if Kentucky is anything, like if the persona of our citizenry is anything, it's that we feel we kind of have little brother syndrome as a state.
Right.
We know that like we're not, when people are making decisions in Washington.
Yeah.
Unless you have the Senate Majority Leader, ain't nobody thinking about Kentucky.
Yeah.
In the first 100 conversations.
Yeah.
It's every other state with a more economic prowess, with more like, just like better coastlines.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But more economic, prosperity, all that. And so like McConnell, I think a lot of him continuing to win, and I'll be honest, but the times I put it for him, I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to like make Kentucky not matter at all.
Yeah.
Like, so I can either have a Senate Majority Leader that maybe is questionable and I'm not sure about, but is like head honcho.
Yeah.
Or I can like, vote for a third party and like, yeah, we got Rand in there, but again, Rand's, it's not like Rand's willing and dealing there. He's kind of, he's kind of the one. He's a stonewaller, and and like an idealist, and I love him to death. But it ain't like that he's getting tons of stuff done. I guess is the thing. I don't mean that in a negative light. I love Rand Paul and everything he represents.
He's just not carrying all the weight that McConnell's carrying, obviously, in DC.
Yeah. And so, I think that a lot of the stuff that McConnell, again, it's not like we're in a vacuum and McConnell is running for, each time he's running for his first office. It's hard to beat an incumbent. He's already in there.
Yes.
And again, like, it's not like, Beshear is a governor, so it's like, he's more present in the state and like, is more embedded with teachers unions and just the unions in general here. He's not off doing other stuff in Washington. He's here in the state. So I think it's not really fair comparison.
Yeah, talk to me about this too.
But I do think people thought that.
Talk to me about this too. We've seen several counties that have, let's say 2019, you have 5,900 for. There's one particular county I'm thinking of, can't remember the name. 5,900 for Andy Beshear, 5,000 for Matt Bevin, and then in 2020 you only have like 3,000 and something for Joe Biden and 12,000 for Trump. So it looks like that there's people that vote for Beshear and vote for Trump. Explain how you're kind of in the wheeling and dealing or whatever in the know-how with how those things work.
It's just culturally. So Kentucky's always been weird. Mm-hmm. I know we've been Democrat here for until I think we had a Democratic legislature till like 2017,
right?
For like 50 years in a row or something. I mean, it's something wild. And we've had like 2 Republican governors, and so we've kind of always been schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, politically, we've had Hal Rogers, we've had Mitch McConnell, but then we've been Democrat on state level. And I think a lot of that is like the not in my backyard stuff. Like, it's easier to vote red nationally because it affects less of your life. Whereas like you voting in state Republicans or whatever, like it might affect your benefits a little bit.
Yes.
What I mean? So just be honest. Like, I'm from East Kentucky, so I'm allowed to talk a little trash. But like, I also think the bigger reason you see that's because, and this is what Josh will tell you, like, if he wants to post something on Twitter that he knows that other people might tell him not to do, I think he goes to you, or he texts me, should I? And I'm like, heck yeah, man, lock and load, cock and lock, I'm ready to go. Like, do it, and I got you back.
Right.
Like, I think a lot of that's the people in the state want that.
Yes.
They want the Josh Callaways, they want the Chris Fugits, they want the Bill Wesleys, they want the people that's going to stand up for the cultural conservatism.
Yeah.
Like, the culture war. That's what we are. That's what people care about. And that's why Trump is so popular, because he not only does he follow through on it, but he almost picks the fights.
Yeah.
Like, he goes out of his way to prove the point. And that's what we need. And so, like, maybe again, I can't even really speak to Daniel that well because I don't know him at all.
Right.
Now, I was like, I know some people that love him, but I'm like, I don't know if they love him because he's the Republican, he's on the ticket,
right?
Or like, if they love him. Like, but
right.
I will say this: I do know, because obviously being from Eastern Kentucky,
mm-hmm.
the ground game in the areas where they had to win big, where they had to get Trump's people pumped, they had to get their blood pumping. You know what I mean? And get them like excited, get them thumping their chest, and like, they weren't doing it.
Right.
I mean, it's just how it is. Like, they, if they go listen to this show, they all of a sudden they're trying to get me blackballed from the buildings in Frankfurt because I'm just speaking truth here. Like, it just is what it is. That's what I try to do, just tell the truth. Like, I had state reps and I had county judge executives all calling me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a nobody. Mm-hmm. Like, in the scheme of things, I like to lurk in the shadows. Like, and saying like, hey, what should we be thinking about this guy? And I'm like, I think that's all we probably know. Like, I want a Republican to win, but like, again, like, if you weren't going to win the election in Jefferson County, you could lose it here, but you weren't going to win it here.
Right.
You had to win it everywhere else.
But did he spend quite a bit of time in Jefferson County, or?
I think, again, I don't really know where they were at.
Yeah.
Like, I know Josh and them were working hard for them and stuff, you know what I mean? And like, but like, I was never made aware of where there was a huge ground presence.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I know in East Kentucky, there wasn't anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm giving an example here, and just tell me if you need me to shut up and, cause you need to move on.
Oh no, you're go.
But like, whenever, back in the primaries and stuff, again, like, I'm trying to go with legislation and lobby bills and write bills, and so I got to garner consensus, and I can't really be pissing everybody off. And that's as slangy as I get as a P word, okay? Promise you. But like, I can't make them feel mad. I got to work with everybody. But like, whenever the primaries was going on and Kraft was going, and I was trying to back channel and saying, listen, pay attention to where Kraft wins.
Yeah.
Because like, that's where you got to make up the ground. And it was all around the Westford, like the West Virginia, Tennessee, East Tennessee corridor is where Kraft was. She came in first. It was Kraft, Quarles, and then Cameron. In like Bell County, I think Martin County or somewhere, like Pike County, like all those big major, color, like Harlan County,
right?
Pike, Perry, like she was very, very successful there, and it's because that's what they care. Like in order for, like I said, my mom's a teacher, East Kentucky, and like hopefully she don't lose her job, not for them finding out her son is a big Republican, big red operative here, but like. Man, my stepdaddy works in the coal mine, and he's Southern Baptist, so he ain't holding no punches anyway. But like, if you were going to get them to not vote for Beshear, they had to think that Cameron was as much like Donald Trump as possible.
Right.
And they did not.
How about like let's take for instance the Attorney General in these areas that you're talking about. Then Russell Coleman is performing very, very well. How do people go in, not really, Russell Coleman's not like a national name or anything like that. How do people go in voting for him? What was his ground game like that was different than Daniel Cameron's?
Well, I think you can bring it right back to the bread that was spent, like the Democratic Party wasn't putting nothing behind Pam Stevenson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was nothing out there saying
I totally understand.
Russell Coleman's demonizing Pam Stevenson and all, yada yada. The teachers union supporting Pam Stevenson. So that's the Democratic Party lies.
Yeah.
And so go look at the abortion amendment, the stuff that I did a whole show on that about like the lies they were putting on there about what the abort, and they were so effective at it. My mother, who swears up and down she's never said a cuss word, I believe her. Like she's that Southern Baptist. You know what I mean? Like. Driving the church bus, she's probably listening to View the Land right now. Okay, like she called me the morning of the election, was like, "Is this really going to put the power of abortion back in the government's hands?" And I was like, what kind of question is that? Yeah. What do you even mean by that? Like, and what do you care?
Yeah,
like if they convince you it's okay to murder a baby,
right?
Like, and so, but it is they're that convincing when they decide when they pick an issue they're going to lie about. They're that good at it, and I think they just. We dance around this teacher issue and they're so they've been so afraid to make teachers upset because of what happened with Bevan.
Right.
They haven't noticed, they haven't seen how the tides have turned.
Yes. Yeah.
So we were back in my hometown a couple weeks ago. We went back down there we went on a hike down to Coma Gap, National Park. Took my two oldest ones on like a 11-mile hike down there. My next door neighbor, he's a 96-year-old Korean War vet, right? Still wearing like his black shined up war boots and like 96 years old out mowing his grass and comes over there and he's like, these public schools, they ain't what they used to be. And I'm like, this is a guy that 5 years ago would have defended the public schools to the death.
Yeah.
But like, again, they're not used to it was like, as soon as you started attacking education, they personalized it and it was like you were attacking each individual teacher. The tides have turned now, and people get it.
Yeah,
like they understand. Like the left has infiltrated the educational system from California to Rhode Island and everything in the middle. And so, as long as you're not saying teachers stink and deserve all to be fired, you can go after the educational system all you want. And people again, you got to be able to speak to it and what's happening. But everybody's aware of it now. But the Cameron. I'm not aware of the Cameron ticket. When I was listening to the last debate, they were actually not saying they were against universal pre-K, and I'm like, boys, I'm not trying to give these people, our children, any younger.
Yeah, and some of that is the George Bush, no child left behind stuff that's still like a cancer inside of the Republican Party. The government knows how to make sure your children succeed in education better than anybody else, and what has actually been shown over the past several years is that they don't. They cannot educate your children better than you can. Their numbers compared to homeschool or private school is atrocious, absolutely atrocious.
Well, no, and that's kind of one of the. So it's like, I know that we get into these things where we just say we just want change. I think we get like this with bill, with like legislation. We get like this with candidates as well. We're like, we want something different so bad. To where we go all in on something where it's like, okay, but was it really going to change? Was it going to change anything?
Right.
You know, and again, like this is not a like attack on Daniel Cameron. I want everybody to know that I don't know him personally. And, like my wife knows, runs around with some ladies at church that know his wife real well, and I think her name is Mackenzie. And so, like, you know, again, I'm gonna try to call a spade, and like, if I don't know, again, you talking about 4 names. If John Ross Marcus Cox at this point doesn't know what you're about,
right?
Like, I don't know, like any other one individual that's like is tuned into like what's happening at the ground level with like the average dude.
Yes.
You know, and like, so if I don't know what you're about, then it means that like you probably ain't saying the things that,
right.
You know what I mean? And so like I think we just kind of ran into that. And again, my whole deal is, and I've gotten in trouble for this a couple times, is like if I don't know that for sure, I one thing that I was worried about was that we would win, that we'd win it all. Right. Yeah. And then we'd look up, and then all of a sudden now we're not passing strong bills like Josh Callaway's HB 173, because now it's all on us. If it's bad, then we get murdered for it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And we have to take all the blame.
Yeah.
And like my worry was that we'd start getting antsy because of that. Like, because like Beshear and your governor, really, honestly, they're supposed to be a talking head anyway. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not really supposed to have the kind of legislative power and judicial power and like executive authority that we've granted them over the years. You know, they're not supposed to be able to tell you if you can go to church. Like, I don't care. It's like I was telling Shane Baker this when they passed the religious freedom bill. Like, I don't care if there's a fountain of black plague in the like reception hall at church. The governor cannot tell you can't go in there. I don't care what Walmart attendance is like, you know. And so like we have allowed them to do these things, and so but like in theory they don't. In theory and practicality and in actual letter of the law, it shouldn't matter. So like I'd rather a goober be in there, but have a strong legislature like we have.
So let's kind of talk about that too. So let's go through 2 scenarios here. Cameron wins really, really close, or Andy Beshear wins by bigger than he did in 2019. If Andy Beshear wins bigger than he did in 2019, what does the legislative, elections look like next year, in your opinion? And do you think there's like a clampdown on all of the legislative agenda that you've been involved in and helped with, or how do you think that works?
I think either way, it was going to be an all out, back alley brawl. Now, like if Cameron wins, I do think this. I do think that we will see a whole nother level of like the Republican apparatus taking control of everything.
Yeah, because he really did run.
We got
his state. At least
like
his
you'll see the McConnell.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's like just like the McConnell people. Like it'll be even harder for people like Josh and Chris Fugit, Bill Wesley, Ryan Dotson. You know, like it'll get even harder. You know, Shane Baker's. It'll get harder for them, I think, to get through the strong Jennifer Decker. I don't want to forget anybody here. Mm-hmm. To get to as strong bills as they would like, because now all of a sudden the Republicans got to sign it.
Yeah,
you know, it's different whenever like a bunch of like, again, think about there's 138 legislators, so like the blame can get spread around a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you have a Republican governor in there, and you sign a bill, and it's like all of a sudden now it's like trans hate stuff. Yes. Like that label isn't going to Josh Callaway anymore; it's going to Daniel Cameron.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
And so, like, I think that we would have to worry about that. Now, it's like I do think you'll have certain people in the Republican Party. They're going to be like, well, Beshear won, so we must not be as red as we thought. We're going back purple. You know, but again, it's going to be the same. I could tell you, and I would tell you offline who those people would be, and I would love to. I say, oh, here's these 6 people, and I'd love to be able to come back to you in 6 months and like tell you. I'd be able to tell you, yep, these are the exact 6 people because they want to. It's easier for them,
right,
to just live life and be that kind of legislator.
Yes.
But like, if it's less sexy for the big money to move in and try to influence individual, like redneck and hillbilly legislators, then it's for them to come in and only have to funnel into one person, which is the governor.
Gotcha.
You know, and so I do think that, like, again, this is not a popular opinion, but like Josh, Lindsey, like all the Liberty type like legislators that we know and love are gonna. I think are gonna have. It's going to be just as easy or just as hard. I don't think their life's going to change much.
Right, I got you.
Like if he loses, if he wins, it will get harder. I think.
Okay.
Because again, they're going to think, okay, well, the big money won this. McConnell won it.
Got it.
Josh Callaway, we're taking you off every committee now.
Yeah.
Like this is they'll see it as a repudiation of like that constitutional Christian conservative movement.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even though Danny Cameron's not against that.
Yeah, I have a little bit of pushback there in my opinion, but I mean opinions are like armpits. Everybody's got them, and I've been sweating all day, so mine stink. But I think that with how connected that Brother Josh has been with Cameron in this area, at least, then he. You do have to develop those political relationships sometimes with people that are on your side in order to be on the right side whenever they win. You know what I'm saying? So, what I'm saying? You got to put some effort into it. You can't just expect them to come to you. You have to go to them a little bit, especially if they're running for a statewide office. My opinion.
Yeah, no, and I can definitely agree. And I agree with that, and I'll totally concede that there's all these nuances and intricacies and these personal relationships that go into it, and Daniel being from this is me assuming that Cameron gets in and he allows that to happen.
Yes,
best case scenario, and Lord willing, Cameron gets in there and he says, okay, like the Lord put the youngest and the first African American governor in the governor's mansion for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's time to do the Lord's work and do what I need to do.
Right.
And I'm not saying that he won't do that, because again, I don't know the guy, but everybody I know that knows him says he's a stand up individual with a ton of integrity. He's obviously done a lot of good things and stood his ground and all that stuff. And so in the fact that he's from E-Town and out your all's direction, there's definitely a lot. I do think people scratch the backs that scratch theirs, and Josh has definitely worked his butt off for him. And Josh is a very
hard worker.
He's an effective legislator. I don't care what people say. Okay, he got taken off a couple committees. Who cares?
That doesn't stop him.
That's called he's in the conversation and he's making an impact.
Yeah, and that doesn't.
Otherwise,
stop
they
him.
wouldn't even be thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, one more question here, and then we'll try to, I guess. See if we're going to be miserable or not here. So we got 58% in, and Cameron is 46,000 votes behind. Jefferson County is still at 32%. Why are they so slow at counting votes? Can you explain that to us?
Man, it is I know we can all. I know y'all are safe for us to have this conversation, and my wife would probably kill me if I didn't talk about this. But Going back to 2020, and actually going back to 2019 with the shenanigans that went down with the Bevan Beshear election. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is we just we can never know.
Yeah.
What all is going on, behind the scenes. I mean, I really feel like the only way to sleep at night is to just know that what God wants to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
And we can be a part of it. And was it Ruth in the Old Testament that could go to the king and ask him to free her people, but they were basically listen, the people are going to get freed either way. It's Esther. There you go. I do think that's what helps me sleep at night is I can either be a part of this process and help God accomplish what He wants to accomplish on this earth, or someone else is just going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not going to be the reason it happens or it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, that's the only way I can sleep at night thinking about the elections, because there's just no way to know. But the way they're tallying these things, and we had a couple of gas leaks shut down a couple of polling locations up here. The polling location that me and my wife go to, literally, we showed up to it today, and the parking lot's roped off, and all of a sudden we're having to go to another church.
Yeah.
And we're but didn't y'all know this parking lot was going to be getting blacktopped 3 weeks ago when you sent us our postcards? And of course it's in an area of town that is going to go heavily in Cameron's favor.
Yeah.
So there's all all kinds of
dirty tricks going
stuff
on
like
behind
that.
the stream. Yeah,
That's going on. But I think that no matter what happens, first of all, I want everybody to know when we hang up the phone. Like, I do think if Cameron wins, he would do a great job, and that I have no reason to question his integrity, and I think he's a great man and a great father and a great husband and God for a man, all that stuff. But like, no matter what happens, we have like the legislative session that's upcoming is it's so important that we could win. The governors could win 100%. Dan Cameron could win 100% of the vote tonight.
Yeah,
that wouldn't overtake the importance of this upcoming legislative session.
Yes,
that is like come up with the school choice and some of those. And I'd love it if you want to talk about some of that stuff. If Josh isn't ready to come on, we can. But like regardless, that stuff it's going to be important and it's going to be hard to get done either way. It's just going to be different types of hard.
Yes.
Based on who gets in there, but it's like again I don't know what takes Jefferson County so long, and like they actually extended 2 locations. I think like another hour and a half. Great. One guy went in wielding like I said, I think I told you earlier, wielding a flag and a flagpole and like threatening people and like kicked a machine over, and I don't know if this was like. They weren't yelling insurrection, which tells me he probably was a Democrat. Right. If it was a Republican, they'd been shutting it down and trying to postpone the elections, like Zelensky is out in the Ukraine right now. But there's just no way to, But the fact of the matter is, he was going to lose Jefferson County.
Yeah.
Either way, he just tried to not, but he could still drive up
right
his tally here. You know what I mean? And I think there was a couple of, I think the Breonna Taylor stuff hurt him here, but I do think he had some. Yeah, I tried to back channel to him on a couple of things to I think there was some openings he could have had to won some people, back over. So just some bills they're working on right now that would have really showed that listen, that situation.
Yes.
He could be right in that situation and still want to try to fix some things in the criminal justice system. It's not like that he has to just be against any kind of reform.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, listen, who knows? I mean, we may wake up in the morning. If we wake up in the morning and it's still at 70%,
yeah,
you can bet you bottom dollar some shenanigans going on. They're trying to find those votes. They're just trying to find them.
All right.
They're under a table somewhere.
Well, I think Brother Josh might be here. Hopefully, in about an hour, he might want to give you a call back and talk to you. I don't know if that's amenable to you or not.
I'll be up late. I'd love to chit chat with my good old buddy, Brother Josh, later on. So let him know I'll be on standby, and maybe we'll know a little more.
All right, and you
look at point as well.
You look and tell us what you think. As the numbers kind of come in, I'm seeing some really good numbers in Western Kentucky, maybe. So some things I wasn't expecting. So maybe they'll pull it through for us.
Well, and I'm sure Rob. That's where Robbie and Josh and them out there working is gonna. And I think Max has done his part. I think he was out there with Kelly. I think he's done his part to help out there. So, but hey man, I hope I get to talk to y'all again tonight. And
that sounds cool.
Y'all have a good rest of the evening.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
All right. See you, Aaron. Bye.
The tornado of information and absolute entertainment. I mean, if you've been around this guy, then you know why he has such an effect with people in the legislature behind the scenes. He very passionate about what he does and a great story of how he got into politics and lots of things that he does there behind the scenes. All right, so we're going to look at some numbers here and get right back into what I'm seeing here. So this big number right here looks great. The 61%, and he's only 45% behind. The concerning thing is Jefferson County. They've been at 32% reporting in for probably 45 minutes since 2020, since we saw all of those votes just die off in Pennsylvania and in Wisconsin, and then all of a sudden skyrocket in these big urban areas years later or hours later for Democratic candidates. It just awakens that kind of angst that we felt for about 3 years, that it just doesn't seem like things are going right. So my hope is that Jefferson County gets their hind end in gear and gets their votes in, so we really know where we're standing in this election. Because, Louisville is the machine that drives Kentucky. That's what I heard today from Republican people. Louisville is the machine that drives Kentucky. And so a machine needs to be operating better than anything else in Kentucky if it's going to be the driver there. A couple of things I wanted to look at here. Henderson County. So remember, this went for Beshear in 2019. It was very close in 2019. You can see right here, it was within 500 votes, 68 to 63. Here in 2023, not close. Beshear has 62. He's going to be pretty close to what he got. Daniel Cameron, not near as many as Bevan there. So, again, I'm struggling to understand why Daniel Cameron didn't, an incumbent gives you a certain percentage of votes, not thousands of votes, not 10 to 12 percentage points. An incumbent gives you a certain amount. So I don't know if there's votes there still to be counted or what's going on there. Trigg County. This is Western Kentucky. You got 46 for Cameron, 25 for Andy Beshear. In 2019, this was a lot closer than it is, I believe. Yes, in 2019. See, now this is the kind of number that you want if you are Daniel Cameron. You have a massive voter turnout in Trigg County compared to 2019. Bevan got 2,800 votes. Cameron has 4,600 votes with 99% in. Beshear got some more. He got about 1,000 more, but Daniel Cameron's getting 2,000, 1,700 more votes than he did than Bevan did. So that's the kind of numbers that you really, really, really want to see if you're Daniel Cameron. But it needs to be in more than just one county or two counties. It needs to be in a large swath of counties in rural Kentucky. So let's pick out a random. Is Pike reporting anything right now? Pike reporting nothing. What are you doing, Pike County? Let's look at Mr. John Ross. Marcus Cox was talking about Eastern Kentucky. So let's look at how Daniel Cameron is faring in some Eastern Kentucky counties that are reporting in. So let's look at Boyd County. There's a lot of votes there, 6,068. He's about 350 down, 360 down. And in 2019, Boyd County, that's a little bit of ground gained there as far as votes that he is behind, but possibly not gaining actually more votes than Bevan had. Again, total number of votes is a big deal. This is right here. If the computer screen is up, has it been up for a while?
Yeah.
Cool. If the computer screen is up, this is a big deal right here. The vote total 709, 704, and Daniel Cameron is in an uphill climb as far as that goes at the moment. Again, Jefferson County. I mean, we're going to check it every 5 minutes because it's so obnoxious that they're not reporting in. But that number needs to be around 70, 80% here in the next 45 minutes for us to even know where we're at in the election. You see all these Pulaski that we were looking at before. They had no increase in vote totals except on the Democrat side. And then they went up to 99%. So that means that the last, 6 percentage points, according to what they're saying, the last 6 percentage points that came in all went to Andy Beshear. Very different how things went there. Laurel County, again, no change in the vote totals, went up to 99%. So in those two counties, you have lower voter turnout. There's a possibility, and I'm not on the inside on Daniel Cameron's strategy, there's a possibility that he went hog wild on Western Kentucky, and he is expecting to drive turnout vote there. If Western Kentucky behaves like Trigg County, then Daniel Cameron could completely, wipe out the benefit of Jefferson County. And that's probably why you're seeing Jefferson County not really release any votes, because they want to know what they're up against in Western Kentucky, which sounds really weird. It should be very simple to just count votes and go from there. McCracken County. So this is Paducah. This was not looking this good a little bit ago. They're showing Andy Beshear with about a 600 or 400 plus, 400 roughly, about 750 vote lead. And Bevin won it by 4,000. So he's made up a lot of ground in the past hour. He's going to have to make up a ton of ground in that last 50% if he's going to get it, if he's going to get McCracken County. And let's see here. Graves County, that one was pretty close last time I checked to the same thing as 2019, 67-63, 38-85. And in 2019, then you had Beshear with 42-14, 82-78. So they're going really close there to what it was in 2019. Again, Daniel Cameron really needs to have, just like in these areas, then you saw it go from 80% reporting to 99% reporting without the vote totals changing. He needs this to stay at 99% and still votes are coming in, meaning that he is outperforming and that's what you see here in Trigg County. They're at 99%, but the votes kept coming in, and they were at 99% for a while because they had a lot more voter turnout in Trigg County than they had previously. Let's go with Warren County. Man, what is it with Democratic, counties? Just no, they just cannot count votes. I don't understand what the problem is here. Yeah. Somebody texted in and said, did they count votes using the Common Core system? I think they're counting them using an abacus or their fingers or something. I don't know what they're doing. Okay, we have a jump in Jefferson County, I have been told. Yes, so they're saying 50. So now they're saying 56% of 100 is 112,000. So I would divide 112,000. I'm very, very smart. You can tell by how I'm doing this dumb math. By 56. And then multiply it by 100. And they're projecting Andy Beshear to get about 14,000 more votes in Jefferson County than he did in 2019. Daniel Cameron, we're going to divide 45,500 divided by 56. That gives us our 1%. Times 100 means they project him to be 5,000 below Matt Bevin in 2019. So Republicans in Jefferson County are not really showing up to vote, as they say. Again, remember, 150,000 people in Jefferson County voted for Donald Trump. So if Daniel Cameron gets 81,000, then that means 70,000 people that voted for Trump did not show up to vote for Daniel Cameron. 228,000 voted for Joe Biden. If 212,000 vote for Andy Beshear, that means they only lost 17,000 people or 16,000 people from a presidential election where the voter turnout is insane to a governor's election. That means Republicans do not show up in the off election years for some strange reason. Either that or all the Republicans moved out of Jefferson County, which might be the case. So we got 71% reporting in. He is holding pretty close at 55,000 overall. It looks like to me it's pretty tight, but again, we'll keep checking. The AP would have called it if it was done. They call it pretty quick. So we're going to take like maybe a minute and a half break, 2-minute break, and I'm going to run, feel better, and then we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Quick trip to the restroom there, and feeling much better. And now it's time probably for the final push here. We got 71% in. If we don't know something in an hour, then Jefferson County is probably holding out on us. But they've made a massive dump of votes again. I don't know how they voted. Oh, man, there's some little red dots kind of clearing in here. Adair County. We got a lot of these rural areas that are not reporting anything. Pike County is pretty important there. You said you had several comments on there. Any questions, or is everybody just talking each to themselves?
No, they're all talking about how that if you put Kamala, Pete Buttigieg, Marianne Williamson, and Bernie on a stage with Andy Beshear,
right,
who looks the most normal?
Right.
And the same guy said Andy is normal compared to most Democrats, and that is scary.
Yeah. So, comparing Andy Beshear to national Democrats and, what they look like, people think of Andy Beshear as normal. One thing I did want to point out, which I didn't really beat up John Marcus Cox about, John Ross Marcus Cox, man, my brain's not working right now, is, and I didn't really, we didn't really hone down on it, but the Democrats have spent a ton of money on Andy Beshear. National Democrats have spent a bunch of money on Andy Beshear. And national Republicans, I reckon, didn't spend a lot of money on Daniel Cameron. Another issue that I have had with President Trump is that he's not really willing to wade into spending money for really important state elections. And so I really don't understand that. In this case, I understand he's got a ton of legal bills. And so that's unfortunate and not right, and that shouldn't be happening. But, you can't outspend the candidate 2-1 sometimes and then, expect to have overwhelming results like you are hoping for. From my perspective, again, we have, and I'm not an expert, but from my perspective, we have 72% reporting in, 56% in Jefferson County. Daniel Cameron's behind by 50,000. That's striking distance. So I think that is within striking distance to be a very, very tight race. We're going to look again at those counties in western Kentucky that we were talking about. Henderson County, he's 15 votes down. There are 12,500 votes counted. They're saying 99% in. We'll keep a check on that to see if the vote totals go up, but that is a big loss for Cameron compared to 2019, where Beshear won by 500 votes. 13,000 votes counted, or 13,300 cast then. We're looking at roughly 12,600 cast now. So less votes, Beshear wins by quite a bit more. That's not very good. He's got to make that up somewhere, and that pretty much cancels out Trigg County, where he had made quite a few gains there. Webster County, 97 reporting in, 97%. Daniel Cameron's ahead by 600. We're going to look at 2019 numbers, and, that's pretty much the same. You got 500. Well, Bevan won by 700. And I know that doesn't sound like that much, but that next 3% coming in has to be all Daniel Cameron vote if, we're going to see the right trends that we want to see. You do see counties like Caldwell County, Christian County, nothing reporting. Warren County, 3.2%. They've got the abacuses furiously shuttling back and forth, and the originator of the abacus, who now is probably around 1,200 years old. He is the one running the abacus and counting the votes in Warren County and in Jefferson County. And probably a bunch of people down there, all of the people at Western Kentucky that can't read and write are down there trying to help them out. Do you got anything, Kyle? You were leaning over. I didn't see if there's...
Got a question here. I keep seeing others talking about the amount of straight ticket voting So how does it make any sense that Beshear is the only Democrat leading other than the small local elections?
So we're talking about straight ticket voting. There's not really anything going on in the local elections. And so he's talking about why there's a difference between all the other Republican candidates, which we're going to go through right quick and preview. You see Michael Adams crushing Charles Wheatley. Michael Adams, who did a campaign ad with Andy Beshear like last weekend, just to cover all of his bases and make sure that he's buddy-buddy with the guy who loves to indoctrinate kids with transgender ideology. Then he wanted to make sure he did an ad with him. So, he gets that extra 100,000 votes or whatever from the sympathetic Democrats that love, more than Democrats love a Democrat. They love a Republican who buddies up with the Democrats, because that is a much more useful weapon for Democrats than even a Democratic candidate in a Republican state. I digress. Russell Coleman crushing Pamela Stevenson, which is hilarious. I mean, that is one of the most lopsided races as far as the qualifications and ability to do the job. Not because of, anything to do with who they are naturally. It's not because she's a woman and he's a man. Not because of her skin color and his skin color. Simply because of their experience and their ability to determine things, how their brain works as individuals, not because of, for those who would be angry at me for daring to say that Pamela Stevenson is not qualified to be Attorney General of the state of Kentucky, which is a very, very difficult job. There's a lot of people that are not qualified to do that, but she is one of the least qualified. And so very happy that she is not winning that. Treasurer Mark Metcalf dominating, but you do see a little bit of a different separation there than you do with, say, Michael Adams, who really, he got about 50,000 votes out of that ad with Andy Beshear, so hopefully he enjoys that. Jonathan Schell crushing it. We have the State House district here, which was not anywhere close, as far as I know, to where I am. And that is District 93 in Kentucky. We're going to look up right quick who was there last time. I think this is the guy that passed away in office, who was a Democrat. That is correct. Representative Swan. And so it's very sad that that representative passed away. They have filled that vote with a Democrat representative as well. So we are crushing everything in the down ballot election. Now, here's where people are, skeptical about elections. And I'm not an expert on this, so I can't tell you. All I can tell you is what the numbers are saying. What the numbers are saying is that everybody voted for a Republican, but in the Kentucky governor's race, then they did not hit straight Republican ticket. They literally filled out Democrat and then filled out Republican for everything else. The last time that we saw this was in 2019, whenever they voted for Andy Beshear. And so I'm actually going to pull up the 2004 numbers. I think that is correct. 2004 Kentucky. No, that would be 2000. Is it 2003 or 2006? 2003 Kentucky governor's election results. I don't know if I can find this. So it would be 2007. Let me see if I can find, I don't know if I can find a map of that. But in that race, then Ernie Fletcher lost. He was an incumbent, and he lost to Steve Beshear, who, if you notice the thing there, and you already know this, that is Andy Beshear's dad. So they got some kind of stranglehold on votes in Kentucky for some reason. I can't ever understand it, but we're going to, if I can find this map right quick, then we can look at similar results. Give me 1 second here. I hate dead air time, but we are having it right now. Live map, maybe. That's very old, so we might not have that. Let's see here. Kentucky governor election results. Oh, my goodness. Well, we might have to abandon this because I can't take any more dead airtime here. Kentucky.gov, 2007 primary and general election results. This is going to be a lot of raw numbers, and it looks extremely boring, and it's government issued, so there's nothing summarized in a very readable way at all, which is wonderful. Statewide election results by office. Don't need that. Yeah, let's click on that, and we'll just see. Wow, look at how the government compiles stuff. It looks wonderful. So we're showing that Beshear and Manjardo, totally dominated Fletcher and Rudolph there. So it's not really comparable. They had 619,000 votes. Republicans did not turn out to vote for them. You can see the little registered voters thing, even though this is very annoying to try to look at, not very aesthetically pleasing. They do have a lot of information in these government documents. You see that we had 2.8 million registered voters in Kentucky. That's not even 50% voter turnout. That's 1 million. So that's closer to 30% voter turnout. We're hoping that it's a little bit higher here. All right, let's go back, see if anybody has called this election yet. That is Matt. I had a heart attack for a second. They had already called. That's 2019. They called the election for Andy Beshear. All right, it looks like his lead has widened because of Jefferson County. They are showing 80% reported in, 62,000 for Daniel Cameron, which, that looks just a tad bit better than what it was showing just a second ago. Still, Andy Beshear is showing right on the money, 205 to 212,000 votes in Jefferson County if their projections are correct. Fayette County has been at 92% for 2 hours. So, Lexington there where UK is, they play great basketball, but 8 percentage points, 7.3 percentage points of votes. That would be hilarious if I didn't specify that. I'm sure I'd get destroyed by people later on. 7.3 percentage points of votes, then they can't count. So, very fast. So, Kentucky won, Louisville lost, or Kentucky won, Louisville barely won in basketball. I know some people are worried about that. Let's look at these 3 counties up in northern Kentucky. They are very close to having everything reported in according to the AP. You got 99%, 99%, and 98.4%. So Daniel Cameron wins by right at 5,000 votes. It's 4,800 votes in Boone County. In 2019, in Boone County, then Bevin won by, right at 6,000 votes. That's not a good thing. It's 3,000 plus 3,000, 6,000 votes. So he's 17,000, would be 3,000 and 3,000. So he won by a little over 6,000. Let's double check our numbers here. Oh, looks like somebody has called the election. I'm getting texts in. Is this USA Today? So they got the last dump from, let me ask, is this USA Today? Is this USA Today? I do think that it's interesting how Jefferson County releases their votes whenever, Western Kentucky, they got a good handle on where. It doesn't make sense why they would wait till after Western Kentucky has reported in to know, how much they got to do. But anyway, it's not close right now. So we got, again, this is not showing AP has called it. AP's normally pretty quick, on this kind of stuff. So I'm going to hold off for just a second here, but it is not looking good for Daniel Cameron. All right, let's look at Boone County. Again, 22, that's 2,400 votes, plus another roughly 2,400 votes. That's right at 4,800 votes. So he lost about 1,200 votes there in Boone County. Not very good. NBC called it. Who owns MSNBC. So maybe, forgive me if I don't trust the company who owns MSNBC for just a second. And then whenever Fox News reports it, then it'll all be downhill from there. And then Kenton County, about 2,700 votes. Andy Beshear's up there. I think it was closer, quite a bit closer. So Northern Kentucky was a big one. Oh, MSNBC. Yeah, we'll just hold off on MSNBC for a little bit. Forgive me for the place that employs Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, and other brilliant commentators like that. I'll just hold off for a second on their call. Oh, there we go. AP just called it. So AP, no, again, I'm looking at 2019. Why do I give myself a heart attack? All right. I have a slim sliver of hope here that I'm holding on to with the AP. So we'll just see how it goes. I'm going to check Fox News and see what they say. Also called Arizona extremely early in 2020. Had some inside information there from Fox News. They're not calling anything yet, so we'll just hold our reservations. But if we can kind of diagnose what I see right now, where Daniel Cameron, if you're interested in this kind of thing, Northern Kentucky did not go as well for Daniel Cameron as it needed to. He needed to be, Andy Beshear needed to be about 50% is what I heard today there in Northern Kentucky. And he was quite a bit, he was very close to 50% there. That was a good thing for him. We have nothing from Pike County still. Don't know if that matters at all. But Pike County is pretty big. It's not small. If it's within 5,000 votes, then Pike County makes a big difference. But right now, there's nothing reporting from Pike County, 99%. A lot of these that we had not seen before, they have 99% reported in. Let's look at Morgan County. Yeah, I mean, you gotta win those by a lot. So Northern Kentucky did not go well for Daniel Cameron. Jefferson County so far has gone very, very well for, and the AP called it now finally. So all of our hopes and dreams are crushed. Not that we believe the AP, and we will continue to watch these for a little bit. See if you can get a hold of Brother Josh and see what he wants to do, if he wants to come on or not, or make a statement. We will be on the lookout for any kind of concession speeches to see where Cameron's campaign is holding on at. Daniel Cameron, you can take the thing off the screen because I don't know how this is going to go. Daniel Cameron's not saying anything right now. 3 hours ago. There's one other thing I was wanting to look at. Hardin County is where Daniel Cameron is from, and last check, then he was not winning there. Please reload. LaRue County. Hardin County. So he's pretty much a dead heat in Hardin County with about 28,000 votes in. Bevan won by about 1,500 votes. So, again, we are seeing like either people really loved Andy Beshear, something really strange went on. Those are two different options. Or people really didn't like Daniel Cameron. And I don't know which one of those things is the case.
Several of these Republican people commenting are saying that there was just something that seemed off on camera.
Okay. Again, it is. I want to point out, he was saying the commenters are saying something seems a little bit off on Cameron. And I can understand what they're saying there. As far as something, but there's a wide difference between something being a little bit off with your Republican candidate and not showing up to vote and then crossing over to vote for the Democratic candidate. We're not just seeing people not vote. We're seeing people that voted for Republican and every single thing else by wide margins, vote for Andy Beshear, which is the same thing that we saw with Matt Bevin. And so, that is something that I'm not really understanding, as far as why there is such there's a difference between being apathetic about your governor and saying, well, we'll just vote for that guy, because of whatever. There's something totally different about going out of your way. You're talking about 110,000 people between Michael Adams and Daniel Cameron. Now 140,000 people that decided that they were going to, instead of mark their ballot straight Republican ticket, they were making it a point to vote for Andy Beshear and then vote for all of the Republicans. That's something a little different, and which makes people kind of leery about election results, because it's hard for people to believe that somebody would be so energized about a Democratic candidate that they would, not just vote with their party or whatever. They think that Andy Beshear is doing a great job. That is on the back of COVID, where small businesses were shut down, schools were shut down, people found out what was going on in their schools. Andy Beshear, appointing Jason Glass as education commissioner. Either Daniel Cameron really ticked everybody off, or Andy Beshear, people really love Andy Beshear. I don't know which one it is. So, we'll just go from there. The vote totals are still not dumped in Jefferson County, and that's probably why they're calling it. They're thinking that once all of these counties, if you're looking at the computer, once all of these red counties come in, and even if McCracken ends up flipping with that other 50%, which they may not be as keen about updating the vote totals now that, the AP is called the race, which is super annoying because of how close the votes actually are right now. They're thinking once all of those come in, it's not going to outdo that the other. What they're projecting is 52,000 votes for that are going to come out of Jefferson County. Have you heard anything from Brother Josh?
No, wait for him.
Okay. I don't know if he thinks that we should hold out for a little bit. I know he has some connections inside of the Cameron campaign, and they may be waiting around a little bit to see what is going on there. I'm going to try to continue seeing if there is a... Oh, this is always a good one too that I love about elections. So Beshear has campaigned in Eastern Kentucky about how much he cares about Eastern Kentucky, which is a major coal region. And he is also a big Democrat who has national aspirations and is wanting to run on the fact that he won in a red state twice in a national, and he thinks that he has kind of a corner on how to run in conservative states without having conservative talking points. And so this is one of the way that is happening, and I'll address one other thing about voting and how Democrats mess up things. And just for, everybody, if anybody doesn't know, I used to be a Democrat back in the day about 7 years ago. So some of this is not hands-on information, but, you hear things from people that, really support the Democrats. And then other people that were in the know, especially in northern Kentucky whenever I lived in Cincinnati. Then Beshear announced today, so this is election day. We've already had early voting, and a lot of people have already early voted in Kentucky. He announces today that he is going to allow the closure of 2 coal-fired power plants. PSC held its decision until late last night for political reasons. Now, if Andy Beshear does this 2 weeks ago, or if PSC does this 2 weeks ago, then Beshear takes a hit in Eastern Kentucky. He tried to protect that voter base in Eastern Kentucky that liked him because he went and visited whenever the Eastern Kentucky floods happened. And then he worked with that big, Democrats telling you they're not for big business, they're lying. They love big business whenever it's in their pocket. He waited for that to happen until today so that he wouldn't pay the price electorally, but he gets the bonus points with the National Democratic Party. Same thing is true with polling places in areas where Republicans, in heavily Democratic areas where Republicans need all the votes that they can get, then Democrats are really good about making emergencies happen at the polling places. Now you say, well, that doesn't seem like that's that big of a deal. Well, polling places are not 24/7 polling places. There are places like churches or schools, things that operate every day doing something totally different with much more people, a much higher traffic of people. And so they'll have in a school, for instance, where they might have a voting place, or in a church where they might have a voting place, then they have a lot more activities going on there. For something to go wrong just on election day doesn't prove election interference, but it is election interference. And so they're trying to get as many Republican voters in Democrat areas not to show up to maximize their power in their Democratic areas. So stuff like that Republicans do. They'll shut down power plants and, totally devastate areas that just literally voted for them today. They will totally devastate them and not think a thing about it because their, hubris is massive. All right. So I guess we're not going to have the man of the hour, Brother Josh Calloway, on. As much as I would love to hang around and see if they continue to tally votes, it doesn't look as if they are going to continue updating things in a timely fashion. And so we're going to wrap this up with the AP calling it for Andy Beshear. I do have a couple things personally to say, not endorsed by Josh Calloway for state representative. They're not going to be detrimental. But I know personally a lot of people have gone out and voted. A lot of people have been emotionally invested in this governor's race and really did not want Andy Beshear to have another 4 years to be able to have a free hand in our education system and in a lot of the things that have an impact on us every day, such as, transportation and who gets, what money or whatever. And I know the legislature controls all of that. I understand that. But the governor has an undue influence on a lot of things that we deal with every day. And me thinking that it might be tighter than this, but afraid that Andy Beshear might win, even though I felt good about Daniel Cameron whenever I saw the last poll results, then I just have to say, just as an everyday person, not somebody that has any power, I deal with people, in the community all day. A lot of people weren't talking about the election. It's like they just want it to be, they just want politics to kind of be in the back burner. I want to encourage those who are, if you're watching this, like you're one of the few that really, really care about this stuff probably. And I just want to encourage you not to give up hope as far as what we can do. Andy Beshear does not rule the world even though he tries to. Joe Biden does not rule the world even though he tries to. Elections seem very strange sometimes because the people, it's hard for us to understand why a Republican would win an attorney general and get a massive amount of votes and not the governor candidate. And we can't answer all those questions. But there are people who can. And it is not anti-American. It is not anti-human. It's not inhumane. It's not treasonous to have questions about how elections go. It is not treasonous to want those questions clarified, even if they clarify them against how you wanted the election to go. It is not against the Constitution to desire for our elections to be so transparent that we have no questions about them. If you want to restore unity in this country, I'm not saying the country will move in a better direction. Democrats might win all the time. But if you are intent on restoring unity in this country, our elections have to be verifiable by the people who are voting. It's not just enough for the people in power to say that our elections are secure. It's not just enough for the people that win to say that our elections are secure. It's not just enough for the people who are on television all the time, who have a vested interest in Democrats winning, to say that our elections are secure. Our elections have to be proven to be secure. If our country and our democracy and our republic is actually a republic is going to survive, we have to have confidence in our elections. The lack of confidence in our elections did not start in 2020. It started in 2016, when the entire media told us that the 2016 election was stolen, and then they basically did the same thing that they said that Trump did in 2016. Our country is divided because, not only because of the issues that divide us, and they are very divisive issues, and they should be, but we are divided because we don't have full faith in our elections. If our elections were completely transparent, then we would just say, well, Daniel Cameron wasn't popular. But there's 557,000 people that voted for Daniel Cameron. And in every one of their minds is a question about whether or not Andy Beshear really won. It is not too much of our government to ask that our elections be transparent and for them to find a way to make our elections transparent. There are two things that is extremely important for government: to make sure that the people have trust in the elections and to keep us secure and safe. That's not too much to ask from our government, and I think that I can assume that Representative Josh Callaway is going to be a bulldog in this area, and many other legislators will be as well. There's other people that have decided tonight to run probably for office just because of this issue, and I think that's going to be a great thing. It's going to be an uphill battle for the legislature and for people in general going forward, but keep up the good fight for all, how many 20 or so that are listening, or how many might see it later. Keep up the good fight. Again, I will repeat what I said at the very beginning. The Lord has not lost his power at all. And if he's for us, it doesn't matter who's against us. Who can be against us is what the Bible says. And, our trust and our faith is not in Daniel Cameron. It is in the Lord. But we will fight Andy Beshear tooth and nail. Whatever has to be done, we will fight him to make sure that he is not able to indoctrinate our children and control how our families operate going forward. So I think I will sign off from here. I was holding out a little bit of hope that Brother Josh might call in or something, but I think that we'll sign off from here, and hopefully it will not be too long until we see you again on the Josh Callaway podcast. Thank you.